All right, Alex, welcome. Welcome back, sir. I trust that you've had a sufficiently dumb week.
No, actually, this one was particularly intelligent.
Oh, okay. See, I was actually thinking that this was more in line with our typical dumb week. That we had a lot of sort of expected dumbness to go through.
I mean, nobody got shot in the neck, so I guess
Exactly. Exactly. That is one of the
it's a
most
step up.
important things. Or at least that we've heard. There may have been someone somewhere.
I mean, now that you say it, I'm sure somebody got shot in the neck. Just nobody we know.
So we have a lot of dumb to get into this week. We're going to start off though with something maybe a little bit semi-optimistic. Semi-optimistic. Are you ready for some semi-optimism, Alex?
Is it like that band from the '90s, Semisonic?
It's very possibly similar. I'm not sure though. It is music related. It is a music themed
Very good. All
sort of
right,
story.
I'm I'm
So
I'm ready for it. I'm
so
ready.
Alex, you have kids and how what is your oldest is what, 6?
Yep.
Okay. So they might not be in touch with all of the most popular music that the kids these days are listening to. But
Yeah, yeah. Not my kids these days.
one of the most recent sort of explosive um, musicians to come out of the world is now 20 years old, and his name is David Anthony Burke. And according to Wikipedia, David Anthony Burke, known professionally as D4DV, D4VD, pronounced David, is an American singer and songwriter. He began creating his own music at his mother's suggestion to use in his Fortnite gameplay montages on YouTube and avoid copyright strikes. In 2022, he released his singles Here With Me and Romantic Homicide, which became viral hits on TikTok and led to his signing with Darkroom and Interscope Records. Burke is a Christian and draws power from his Christian faith. He once said in an interview, "I get my personal power from God for sure. I am a heavy believer in the Christian faith." Now, his song mentioned in that Wikipedia blurb there, Romantic Homicide, has 184 million views on YouTube and 1.68 billion plays on Spotify. He recently released his first album and has begun his world tour. So, isn't that some good news, right? There's a nice success story of someone who was spending his time on Fortnite, was given a suggestion by his mom, and found success in just sort of a hobby that he was finding so that he could post Fortnite videos on YouTube without getting copyright strikes. Isn't that a nice little success story, Alex?
I'm sure this is not going to take a dark turn. This sounds amazing. I'm very happy for him.
Yes, that's right. It is not going to take a dark turn, except wait. Oh, sorry, we're getting an update.
New details just released about the identity of the person found wrapped in plastic discovered in the trunk of a singer's car. We're breaking down the latest and where the investigation stands now, as the singer's rep maintains that he's fully cooperating with the investigation. Thanks for joining us on Law and Crime. I'm Elizabeth Milner. Investigators say the remains were of a 15-year-old girl who was reported missing last year. But even with this new lead at this time, police are keeping tight-lipped if they have a suspect or a person of interest. Earlier this month, employees at a tow yard in Hollywood noticed a strong odor coming from one of the cars. The smell was so strong and foul, they had no choice but to call police. When officers arrived, that's when the startling discovery was made. A body was wrapped in plastic and dumped in the vehicle's trunk. When investigators dug into who that car belonged to, they learned it was registered to the singer David, whose real name is David Anthony Burke. Officials say that the car was towed from the Hollywood Hills after someone reported it missing. Investigators believe that the body was put in the trunk about 5 days before it was towed to the impound lot. Now, initially, we didn't know much, including who was the victim. Did the victim have ties to the singer? Was the singer a person of interest or a suspect? We're still waiting to learn more, but now investigators reportedly identified who the victim is. We're learning this week that the Los Angeles County Department of Medical Examiner ID'd the victim as a 15-year-old girl named Celeste Rivas. According to LAPD, the victim was 5'2", had wavy hair, and a tattoo on her right index finger that says shh. She was found wearing a tube top, black leggings, an earring, and a yellow metal chain bracelet. According to a report by TMZ, though, the singer David also had that exact same tattoo on his right index finger. But that doesn't necessarily equal murder suspect. It might be an odd coincidence, especially with other celebs like Lindsay Lohan, Rihanna, and Lily Allen sporting the same tat. Here's what else we know about 15-year-old Celeste. Her mom told local reporters she had been missing for more than a year. Her mom said when she saw the news of the body found in David's Tesla, it was suspicious to her because her daughter's boyfriend's name was also David. Little is known at this time about the events leading up to Celeste going missing. According to a missing poster, she was last seen on April 5th of 2024 in Lake Elsinore, California. That was when she was 13 years old. She was last seen wearing gray pants, a black sweater, hat, and Hello Kitty sandals. Attorneys for the singer say that he continues to cooperate with the investigation. While authorities haven't publicly said that he is a suspect, that hasn't stopped some people from jumping to their own conclusions. Some eagle-eyed fans pointed to David's previous songs as some kind of clues or messages, like Romantic Homicide, for example. His lyrics include, "In the back of my mind, I killed you, and I didn't even regret it. I can't believe I said it, but it's true. I hate you." Now, that song was released in 2022, 2 years before Celeste went missing and 3 years before her body was discovered. But again, it didn't stop some people from speculating. Then, in another report from TMZ released Wednesday, the singer professed his love to someone named Celeste in an unreleased song. According to the report, those unreleased tracks included the lyrics, "Oh Celeste, the girl with my name tattooed on her chest. Smell her clothes like cigarettes. I hear her voice each time I take a breath. I'm obsessed." The other verse included the lyrics, "Oh Celeste, afraid you'll only love me when undressed, but you look so damn gorgeous in that dress. Missing you so much makes me depressed, but I digress because..." Now, according to the report, that song was leaked in December of 2023, just months before Celeste was officially reported missing. And it's important to note, no official confirmation Celeste in the leaked song is the same Celeste found in the car. Companies like Crocs and Hollister pulled their marketing campaigns after Celeste's body was discovered too. In a joint statement, the brands wrote, "We are aware of this developing story. With respect to the current situation, we have removed campaign content featuring David while the investigation continues." According to a previous report by TMZ, it was police who told David that there was a body inside his Tesla because he had no idea what was going on. But it's still unclear how the car registered to him ended up in a tow lot if it wasn't even reported missing. Again, the singer's rep says that he has been cooperating, but we learned today he's pausing his current world tour. According to TMZ, he was supposed to hit the stage in Seattle for a concert, but sources tell the outlet that concert was canceled and the rest of his tour is on pause. Following the latest in the investigation, ABC 7 Eyewitness News reports a house close to where the Tesla was abandoned was searched. Dozens of investigators were reportedly seen taking a computer and other items from a home in Hollywood. Some homeowners told the news outlet they remembered seeing that Tesla for a while, either parked at the house where police conducted their search or at other spots on the same street. But as of this recording, he isn't named as a suspect, and no criminal charges have been filed against him. So the mystery and investigation continues.
So yeah, bad news for David. His missing Tesla, which was never reported missing, wound up having a body in it. That's some bad vibes, and the awkward coincidence of having some songs named "Romantic Murder" and talking about dating a girl named Celeste and having a dead girl named Celeste in your trunk of your car are bad coincidences, Alex. And we hope the best for him, and we hope he can resume his tour at any point in time. Alex, are you with us still? Alex has disappeared. All right. Well, Alex, we're going to get moving on to some updates from the Charlie Kirk assassination, unless you're back with us now, Alex.
Hello.
Hello, there you are.
Sorry. The emergencies are running home. I heard most of that. What the hell?
Yes, it's a very unfortunate turn of events that David's Tesla that went missing, that he never reported missing, was found in a tow lot with a dead woman in it who had been missing for over a year, who just happened to be coincidentally named after a girl that he was singing about in a song.
And it was her boyfriend's name, and
yes. So it's a
well, Alex and I had tickets to go to this one in Seattle. So
really
going to that.
No, Gator, no. No,
I
not
I
really.
hate it when a dead body ends up in my trunk. It's a
I mean,
bad,
no,
bad
the
day.
coincidences are piling up, and
I mean, they're self-driving guys. You never know. Maybe it just
Maybe it committed the murder itself.
That's right. Blame it on Elon. I mean, that could work. Honestly, there's some juries that this will totally work with. Gator, I have a home emergency. I'll be back in like 10 or 15. But that was wild.
all right. Okay.
To wrap up Alex's joke, it's closing time on this one.
Ah,
Very good.
well, we got
do you know what that song is about?
closing time.
No?
It's about the process of giving birth. I'm not
Closing
even
time
kidding.
is. Closing
Boom.
time is.
Your mind is blown now. I'll be back in 15.
All right. So we're going to have some updates on the Charlie Kirk assassination story. This one's going to take some twists and turns. Everyone might remember from the sort of immediate hour after the announcement of the shooting that there was an elderly white man who was being arrested and was saying that he had the Fifth Amendment right to not self-incriminate. And people assumed in that immediate aftermath that he was the shooter because the photos were going around of the police arresting him and things like that. And why would you arrest someone for shooting if he wasn't the shooter? They should have had a good reason to suspect. Well, it turns out that this man was released shortly after, and the questions were, so why would he say that he shot this guy? Well, this man who was arrested, this elderly man, his name was George Zinn. And George Zinn apparently has a very interesting sort of history. The Salt Lake Tribune, George Zinn, arrested on suspicion of obstruction after Charlie Kirk shooting, is widely known Utah political gadfly. Images were rapidly circulated online Wednesday showing police escorting an older man away after the fatal shooting of conservative commentator Charlie Kirk, and many Utahns recognized him as occasionally ubiquitous activist George Zinn, 71. Utah state law enforcement officials late Wednesday said he was taken into custody on suspicion of obstruction of justice and ultimately released. Another person was also detained in connection with the shooting, but was later released as well after law enforcement interrogation, Utah Police Department of Public Safety confirmed in a new release. There is an ongoing investigation and a manhunt for the shooter, according to the release. The Salt Lake Tribune's attempts to reach Zinn were unsuccessful. Attorneys who represented Zinn in misdemeanor cases earlier this year also did not respond to requests for comment. Zinn is known for showing up and occasionally disrupting or being arrested at events ranging from political speeches to the Sundance Film Festival to various protests. He holds the distinction of being the first person thrown out by security at the swanky City Creek Center Mall when it first opened in downtown Salt Lake City in March 2012. In one widely shared video from the Orem campus, a uniformed officer and men in plainclothes are holding Zinn's arms and moving him away from the scene. At one point, his pants fell and bunched around his ankles, revealing his boxer shorts. Spectators were yelling at Zinn, one repeating, "How dare you?" Salt Lake County District Attorney Sim Gill told the Tribune on Wednesday that his office had prosecuted Zinn, whose criminal history dates back to the 80s, numerous times. Near the end of the video, one uniformed officer is heard saying, "He said he shot him, but I don't know." Salt Lake County District Attorney Sim Gill Often Gill said Zinn was arrested on suspicion of trespassing. He said Zinn was politically conservative, leaning libertarian, and would give me a hard time for being a Democrat. Zinn had a curiosity about politics, and almost every political event you can think of, there was always George somewhere in the background listening. He's a person who can be odd and has those kinds of sometimes odd behavior challenges, Gill said, but by and large, he's more of a gadfly than anything else. Gill said his office had previously tried to get Zinn enrolled in mental health court for some of his misdemeanor charges, but he never really participated in that. Most recently, in May, Zinn was arrested by Ogden police on a misdemeanor count of pedestrian in roadway. George stated he didn't care if the vehicles waited all day. "I told George he needed to wait on the sidewalk and not in the roadway," the officer wrote. "He told me he did not care and to take him to jail." After several minutes, the report showed the officer did just that. Months earlier, in January, police in Park City arrested him on suspicion of trespassing. He was banned from the festival after he reportedly tried to push his way into a Sundance Film Festival Q&A, but returned multiple times and was arrested days later. The most serious charge against Zinn came in 2013 when he was charged with threatening to place bombs at the Salt Lake City Marathon finish line. Zinn took a plea deal and received a sentence of probation, was ultimately ordered to jail for 1 year, with credit for time served after not meeting the conditions of his probation. In recent years, Zinn attended Salt Lake County Mayor Jenny Wilson's 2023 State of the County Address, a 2023 Sutherland Institute event headlined by U.S. Senator Mike Lee, and former Utah House Speaker Greg Hughes' 2020 announcement that he was running for governor. In 2019, when a downtown Salt Lake City protest against the Utah Inland Port Authority turned violent, Zinn was one of 5 people arrested and taken to jail, KSL reported. Zinn, then 65, was arrested for investigation of disorderly conduct and failure to disperse. The other 4 people taken to jail were activists less than half his age. In 2003, Zinn was a spectator at the Colorado court hearing for Kobe Bryant when an NBA star faced a sexual assault charge. The Associated Press reported he was a regular at promotional movie screenings along the Wasatch Front until advertising agencies that organized such screenings stopped letting him attend. He was walking around Rice-Eccles Stadium without a ticket when the Rolling Stones performed there in 1994. For a time, particularly in the 80s and 90s, Zinn was well known among Utah Republicans as a regular presence at party events, though he held no official position at the party. So apparently this guy has just been causing problems all throughout Utah, getting himself into trouble and getting arrested. And this time it happened to be one of the largest national events of the year that he decided he was going to take blame. Now, the most recent update is that while he was being reported, for whatever reason, and whether or not it was true, I don't know, given his sort of goofy history, he told the police he didn't want them to look at his phone because he had child pornography on it, and he is now pending additional child pornography charges. This guy is just one of the most interesting things, I think, to come out of that immediate event is just volunteering yourself to be arrested and then in telling the cops that you have child pornography in addition to having claimed to have been the shooter. Nathan, any thoughts on that particular angle of the story?
It's certainly strange. Who knows? Weird guy, weird time, weird place.
Now, the aspect of the story where I mentioned that he was arrested for saying that he was planting bombs at a marathon has been misreported through a game of telephone online as him having been at the Boston Marathon bombing. So he did the sort of hoax bomb threats in Salt Lake City right after, sort of as a copycat sort of threat to the Boston bombing. But as far as I can tell, he was not at the Boston bombing. So if you see people repeating that he was at the Boston bombing as well, that's sort of a game of telephone I believe people are playing. He was not at the Boston bombing. He was doing a hoax call threat to a marathon that was in Salt Lake City after the Boston bombing. So just so you're aware, Nathan, don't fall for that particular angle. MSNBC, Charlie Kirk's not dead and other conspiracy theories. Within hours of the assassination of conservative activist Charlie Kirk, edited videos began to spread online. Some focused on the moment Kirk was shot, zooming in on the obviously fatal wound to make the strange claim that he hadn't been killed at all, that the video was fake, generated by computer, or that the squeeze of his right arm was proof he had popped a capsule to make it appear as if blood was pouring from his neck. In videos that each racked up hundreds of thousands of views, one Illinois creator pointed to photos of the Turning Point USA founder making an OK sign with his hands. These symbols, they said, proved Kirk had not only faked his death, but that it was actually revealed his alignment with a demonic cabal that secretly controlled the world. Kirk is, of course, senselessly and indisputably dead. That fact alone was enough to shatter reality even for people outside of the gravitational pull of the internet conspiracy culture. Kirk is, of course, at 31, Kirk was arguably the most popular and influential figure in the right-wing politics outside of Trump, for whom he acted as a strategist, the guy who brought young people into the MAGA movement and helped with Arizona. To the religious right, he was a hero. To many on the left, an avatar of racism, transphobia, and misogyny. And to tens of thousands of young people, especially men, who packed his rallies, and the millions more who watched his clips online, Kirk was someone who could talk to anyone, win any argument, and offered a vision of life filled with purpose and power. He connected Maha and MAGA and sealed Trump's selection of J.D. Vance for vice president. Kirk was, as his podcast intro declared, the voice of a generation, and many believed a future president. Now, Nathan or Nick, I don't know if you've seen many of the, quote, conspiracy theories going around in the aftermath, but the idea that he's still alive brings me some fond nostalgia of people who thought that Biggie and Tupac were still alive and hanging out with Kurt Cobain in some island somewhere. I don't know if they
Tupac's
were
I mean,
Right.
that
actually
one seems possible, but I'm pretty sure Kirk is dead. I haven't actually seen these conspiracies. I saw some stuff about I don't know, the Tim Dillon show, something about Israel. It was sort of strange that Netanyahu like had multiple minutes where he was like, Israel didn't do that. Like that's a
Well,
strange thing to say.
well, that's because that was the rumors online immediately were sparking that Israel was responsible for the assassination.
Oh, bizarre. I wouldn't have expected them to be responding to online rumors, but who knows? We live in a Twitter-driven world now, apparently.
Well, yeah, we certainly do. And the Free Beacon reports MSNBC misinformation reporter suggests Kirk assassin may have engraved "Hey Fascist" on the bullet to set up the left. MSNBC misinformation reporter suggests, that's repeat of the title. MSNBC reporter Brandy Zadrozny suggested Friday that Tyler Robinson, the suspect in Charlie Kirk's assassination, could have been trying to set up another ideological enemy for the shooting by leaving anti-fascist references on the ammunition he used in Wednesday's shooting. Authorities revealed at a press conference Friday morning that a shell casing found with the rifle used to assassinate Kirk was engraved with a message that read, "Hey Fascist, catch." Scrawled on another shell casing were the lyrics of a prominent Italian anti-fascist folk song. The suspected executioner, Robinson, became more political in recent years, member of his family told investigators. At a recent dinner, Robinson and family members discussed Kirk's upcoming visit to Utah and their disdain for Kirk's political views. The family member also stated Kirk was full of hate and spreading hate. Utah Governor Spencer Cox recounted at a press conference. As for Robinson's motive, the "Hey Fascist" engraving speaks for itself, Cox says. Still, Zadrozny, an award-winning misinformation and internet extremism reporter, said it's impossible to decipher why the alleged assassin decided to end Kirk's life before offering up a number of theories. It's really hard to tell when you look at what he put on these shell casings, allegedly, Zadrozny said on MSNBC shortly after Cox announced Robinson's arrest at a press conference Friday morning. It's hard to decipher if he really means them, if he's trolling, if he's making fun, if he's trying to set up another ideological enemy for this shooting. It's just impossible to say, Zadrozny said. So now that theory, Nathan, I don't know if you had sort of seen, was the sort of idea that it was what they call a groyper who was responsible for the shooting. Have you heard?
I had heard
idea?
that. And I think she is not entirely wrong that it is tough to tell whether those were like literal or trolling or whatever. I think it's a bit of a stretch to suggest the competence to set somebody up or whatever by putting trolly messages, but who knows? I mean, I'm not enough of a online person to even know what. I had to Google all those things that were engraved on the bullets.
Well, Reuters is partially responsible for the running idea that it was the groypers who were responsible for the shooting by misattributing, apparently, a quote from an expert that they had interviewed. This expert that they had interviewed supposedly had told them that it was indicative of groyper messaging, but the person that they interviewed went on a long Twitter tirade explaining how they were misquoted and that how Reuters, instead of actually correcting the quote with a message saying that they've made an error, simply ghost modified it. Rachel Kleinfeld. I was misquoted by a reporter, and now I'm in the midst of a media storm. People who care about the real story should read here. A Reuters reporter misquoted me in a story about Charlie Kirk's murder, putting words in my mouth that pointed a finger at a particular group as responsible. The reporters had mixed up their own notes with my quote and reported what they had found elsewhere as my words, as if I had said them. I never mentioned a specific group or movement to Reuters or any reporter. I do not study specific groups and I don't comment on them. I would also not speculate about something as serious as who committed the murder. Reuters realized what had happened and tried to simply change the quote without admitting the error, like a 5-year-old who broke mom's vase and tries to hide the damage. When I learned what had happened, I and the Carnegie Endowment where I work attempted to get Reuters and other outlets that had by then quoted the original misquote to print a formal retraction admitting that they had misquoted me. They eventually did, but far, far too slowly. Meanwhile, I was getting hateful messages from people who read the misquote and others who thought there was a cover up. And then the Foundation for Freedom Online made allegations that my institution, the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, as supporting censorship. They noted that it's considered good journalistic practice when a news website makes a clarification correction or any other substantial change to its initial report for the authors to include a note informing readers that a change has been made. I very much agree. Then they wrote, correctly at the time but not now, that no such note can be found in Reuters' report, making the edit look more like an attempt to cover up misinformation than an honest correction, and inferred the rest of the story. I am furious at the reporter in Reuters in their editorial slowness in printing a retraction, which they should have done immediately. I also know that Reuters has excellent reporters who do thoughtful, careful work on political violence and other topics. Carnegie also has thoughtful, careful scholars. Reporters and scholars sometimes make mistakes. The way to correct them is to publicly admit a mistake. Society needs to make room for honest mistakes and to those trying their best, whether by a scholar or in this case by a reporter. So many news outlets copied the Reuters story and repeated this assertion from the, quote, expert that it was indicative of a groyper. Now, a groyper, for those who may not be aware, is a sort of, we'll use the term far-right, trollish acolyte of a man named Nicholas Fuentes. Nicholas Fuentes is a podcaster / internet radio host who dabbles in the far right arena, we'll say, and is known to espouse anti-Israel / anti-Semitic sentiments and be part of the trollish nature that sort of idolizes Hitler online, whether as just simply a troll or honestly, I don't know the man's soul, so I can't say. However, the adulation of Hitler and the detesting of Jews is a fairly common theme there. So the idea was spread far and wide that it was not someone of the left, not someone who hated Charlie Kirk for his conservative views. It was a more far-right individual who I guess was upset that Charlie Kirk was not right-wing enough for their sentiments, and wanted to also, I guess, simultaneously, as Brandy Zadrozny's idea goes, blame the left, frame the left. Now, the outlets that copied this story and perpetuated the idea that it was a groyper because the expert said it was a groyper took approximately 3 to 4 days to catch up to Reuters' changed quote. ABC News Australia had a copy of this story that they posted on the 14th, and they did not update their quote until the 17th with an update. Editors note this story was amended to reflect a correction made by Reuters, which removed inaccurate quotes attributed to Rachel Kleinfeld, linking engravings on the bullet casings to the so-called Groyper movement. So everyone's doing a really good job out there in the mainstream press at making sure that everybody has up-to-date, accurate information in a timely manner, as we expect them to be at all times. Right, Nathan? Everyone's getting good, accurate information, able to help
for
them
sure.
cohere the scenario.
I very much trust all of the news outlets and information that I get immediately.
The triple reverse psychology cognitive dissonance has been quite impressive, if not horrifying, but you know.
Well, expand
By
on
the way,
that,
Gator,
Nicholas.
I'm having some deja vu here. Did we talk about a story where like there was an update made or not made, and how long it took in some past dumb week?
You know what? These weeks have been fairly dumb, so they all sort of blur together. I can't say off the top of my head with that with that narrow of an idea at the moment.
Fair enough.
But Nicholas, would you like to expand on that comment you just made there?
I just, it's you see the juxtaposition of people's comments alternately praising or decrying free speech side to side. You've got this logic that people apparently accept that someone who was a supporter on the right would want to murder the guy who, helped get Donald Trump elected. And they believe it. And it's odd to me that they're sitting there maintaining these contradictory thoughts and then saying that, oh, it would obviously be someone on the right that would want to kill someone on the right for a politically motivated reason. And I'm like, this sounds plausible to you? Okay. Like, But
Well, in a
it's
crazy world, anything could be hypothetically possible, including, someone of the far right persuasion who had a personal grievance against Kirk, right? Those things are all hypothetically possible. At some point, though, I do believe people are sort of pushing against the wind to try to force something they don't want to admit, trying to lean into their cognitive dissonance, let's say. But that story sort of leads us into something that I find to be one of the most funny outcomes of this week. So I just mentioned Nicholas Fuentes, the quote far right podcaster who dabbles in Hitler adulation and anti-Semitic sort of ideas, and he's had somewhat of a rough week. First, with this accusation that acolytes of his, fans of his, were responsible for the murder. That upset him quite a bit. But then, Nathan, you had mentioned the sort of idea, this quote conspiracy theory that Israel was responsible for Kirk's assassination, right? You've seen that float around a bit, right, Nathan?
I've definitely seen it float around. Yeah.
Okay. Well, oddly enough, Nicholas Fuentes did not automatically join that bandwagon, and he caught hell for not joining the bandwagon, and he had to go on a little rant about it.
Time to wake up, guys. Some of this, I'll be the first one to say, the conspiratard schizo thing, it's getting a little out of control. And that's coming from me. I mean, it's like we are truly through the looking glass. When Charlie Kirk is assassinated, people blame Israel. I, who fought Charlie Kirk because he was pro-Israel, am being said to, I'm being said to be covering up that he was killed for this miraculous conversion. If Ben Shapiro was taken out next, and God forbid, would Israel be behind that too? I mean, that would be equally ridiculous. If it was Ben Shapiro on Wednesday, people would be saying, Israel did it. Shapiro was about to become a national socialist. Like, what? It's crazy.
So Nicholas Fuentes is having a good time with his own supporters who are mad at him for not blaming Israel fast enough for Charlie Kirk's murder. That's one of my favorite things this week.
what is even going on at this point?
Well, the man has principles, I guess.
I don't know what's going on.
It's that's one of my favorites. I'd have to say out of if I had to pick all of the things that really just made me smile, Nick Fuentes not being anti-Israel enough would be the top of the list right there.
There was some self understanding what he said, and this coming from me, like there's a little bit of hints there about his true disposition.
Now, it's unfortunate that my co-host Alex is not with us at this moment, because we're going to take a very fun sort of derivation from this, because we're still sticking under the umbrella of the Charlie Kirk assassination aftermath. But this is where, as the band Powerman 5000 says, this is where the worlds collide. This is what it's like. Now, in a previous episode of This Dumb Week, we talked about the idea that there was an opportunity that we missed where we could have brought the Ukraine war to a close, and that all it would have taken was Candace Owens assisting us just a little bit and forgoing her free speech rights and her pursuit of truth for just a little while, so that Trump could work with Macron and broker a peace deal between Ukraine and Russia. And just for people who weren't aware of what this opportunity was that we missed, I'm going to replay part of Candace Owens' story detailing this event that we possibly missed out on.
And like I said, I've been holding on to this for a very long time because something happened all the way back in February, and I was sworn to secrecy temporarily. And I feel that today is the correct day to inform audiences because it may have some severe global implications. So here is what happened, all right? The date was Monday, February 24th. And in the early evening, I had just kind of wrapped the show. It was just after 5:30 p.m., to be precise. I received a very strange message from a friend of mine. I'm not going to identify that friend, but the message specifically read, "Hey, I have something to tell you from the White House. They asked me to call you. I'm just the messenger here." Again, strange. I'm just the messenger here, like kind of removing themselves from whatever was going to be said. So I assume it's got to be something weird. And I say, yeah, whatever, give me a call. And so he does call me pretty immediately, by the way. And he says, somebody very high up at the White House has asked me to ask you if, as a favor, you could stop speaking about Brigitte Macron. Like, what? I ask for a little more information. I say, who specifically called you? And that friend of mine says, it's somebody that has the president's ear. When I call that person back, they tell me something that is even stranger. They say, look, I again am the messenger here. What I was told from somebody that's pretty high up at the White House is that Emmanuel Macron is holding up negotiations to end the Russian and Ukrainian war unless you stop speaking about his wife. And I'm just going, what? Call him back the next day. And I say, look, this is pretty weird. You have to admit this is pretty weird. And you're not really giving me any details. And I kind of want to know who specifically you spoke to, because I think it kind of matters. Is somebody trying to do a side deal while Trump is doing a different deal? And at that moment, he's honest and he says, no, President Trump was on the phone too. And I go, oh, are you kidding me? You didn't tell me this yesterday? I pick up the phone and lo and behold, so here's what happened. I'm negotiating this thing. I'm negotiating Ukraine and Russia, and you wouldn't believe how many parts are part. It is President Donald J. Trump. He is calling me, and in true President Trump fashion, he jumps right into the narrative. We're not, hey, how you doing? He just jumps right into the narrative of exactly how this went down. I am literally, it is hard to catch my breath to comprehend that 4 days ago, I'm ending a series about Brigitte Macron, and now I'm speaking to the President of the United States, and the topic of conversation, no matter which way you want to slice it, it's about Macron's wife's penis. I mean, there's no other way to say it, right? And I'm listening, and he's, in one of his Trump monologues, he's very funny, and then he said, I saw her, Candace, I saw her up close, and she looks like a woman to me. She looks like a woman to me. I had dinner with her at the top of the Eiffel Tower. And I say at this point, yeah, but I found her plastic surgeon who specializes in transgenderism. And I just tell him, we're talking like friends. I just tell him, yeah, no, she's a tranny. And I explained to him that she has had this amazing doctor who specializes in transgenderism surgeries or feminization procedures. I'm talking to the President of the United States about this, guys. This is crazy. This is wacky. But I'm just giving it as good as I get. I'm just trying to get him to understand the truth. And then I explained to him why I don't feel so great about this request, because that's the more important part. Like, you are requesting that I really, and despite your reasoning, which is very sound, that I stop telling the truth. And I said to Trump, and I will be honest, that at that moment I realized that one day this is going to go into my autobiography. And so I got to say something funny. And I said to him, respectfully, Mr. President, it's not my fault that he married someone with a penis.
So you see, Nathan, we had an opportunity to broker a peace deal, but Candace did not want to stop speaking the truth about Brigitte Macron and her penis.
I don't really know what to say about that. This is very strange. Why is there any chance that this is true?
Well,
any of this?
You might be asking yourself, what does this have to do with Charlie Kirk's assassination? And
I thought maybe Brigitte Macron took out Charlie Kirk. Honestly, that's what I was leaning towards.
That would be a natural sort of idea, natural jumping off point. But we will let NBC News sort of give us part of the update.
So the First Lady of France is doing something that may sound surprising. She and her attorneys are planning to try to prove that she is a woman. Stay with us here. Brigitte Macron, wife of the French president, Emmanuel Macron, now says she is going to present scientific and photo evidence in court to prove her sex. This is part of the couple's court case here in the U.S. as they're suing the woman on the right side of your screen, conservative commentator Candace Owens, for saying on her platforms, Macron was born male.
Brigitte Macron was actually born Jean-Michel Trogneux. That is the person that you are seeing in this photo here on the far left. I would stake my entire professional career on the fact that Brigitte Macron, the current First Lady of France, was born a man.
So Macron is trying to shut down these claims and win the case. Owens is trying to get the whole thing thrown out. Let me bring in Yasmin Vasugian here. This is a defamation case here from the First Lady of France here. Help us understand any of the context or even any precedent on this.
First of all, they want to set the record straight. The attorney has said this is incredibly upsetting to both President Macron as well as his wife, Brigitte Macron. They say it's a distraction as well to the president and his family. This is an opportunity for them to prove to kind of shut down all of the rumors and the talk of what you heard from Candace Owens there, to essentially prove that she is, in fact, a woman. As you mentioned, they're going to use scientific and physical evidence, if, in fact, this goes to trial, to make sure everybody understands that that is, in fact, the truth. And I will say this is actually the second defamation case on this, because there was a defamation case that happened in France. This actually initiated with some French bloggers in which the Macrons actually won that case, but it was subsequently overturned in an appeal, not because of the truth, but because of freedom of expression. I will say Candace Owens, for her part, has filed a motion for dismissal. And the attorneys from the Macron family have said, and I quote, "Unlike Ms. Owens, the Macrons welcome the discovery process and look forward to holding her to account for the reckless falsehood she continues to knowingly promote." And let me just say, Hal, as you kind of played some of those videos of Candace Owens, for folks to understand, I mean, I know she has kind of become this household name, but that is because of the huge following that she, in fact, has online. 5 million subscribers on YouTube, 7 million followers on X. So that kind of proves the point of what Brigitte Macron, the First Lady of France, and President Macron are saying, in which they say, we want to set the record straight to make sure everybody understands the truth in this situation.
So the court case is moving through, and now the Macrons are going to, show their evidence that Brigitte was indeed born female. And so this is coinciding, this news this week, with Charlie Kirk's assassination. And the stories are now, according to Candace, it can be revealed that these stories are sort of entwining. So in the aftermath of Charlie Kirk's assassination, Candace updated her original story about her receiving the phone call from Donald Trump.
And I just want to say that Charlie and I, because I think this is important, never for a single minute, ever, did Charlie and I stop being friends. Even when the world demanded that from both of us, our relationship was real. We were brother and sister. We were fortified. Our relationship was forged in fire, the fire of politics. I knew him. I knew Charlie, the real Charlie. And Charlie knew the real Candace, And people knew I didn't like a lot of people in politics. I didn't like a lot of people calling me and doing the political dance. Of course, people guessed it correctly when they said, the person who probably was the intermediary when Trump called about Brigitte was Charlie Kirk. Of course it was Charlie. They would never send anybody else to call me with anything because they knew that Charlie was a brother to me.
So, of course, it was Charlie Kirk was the intermediary that connected her to Donald Trump whenever Trump had asked her to stop talking about Brigitte Macron's penis in order to broker a peace deal. So, you see, all these stories are beginning to intertwine.
Is it the most ridiculous thing? I mean, I guess if they're suing her in the U.S., like it could have made it to Trump, I guess. I don't know.
So, You don't know. That's the problem here, Nathan. We're relying on you to keep us informed about these developments, and here you are.
I wish I knew. I mean, gosh, we're going to need advanced scientific tests to tell if Brigitte Macron is a woman.
My brain does not have the bandwidth to keep up with all this tabloid nonsense going on, but that might just be me.
Tabloid nonsense. This is world politics playing out on X and YouTube right now. This is the most important issue in the world.
Journal, yeah.
So now that the Macrons are submitting their evidence to the court that Brigitte is indeed and was born a female, Candace is making sure that her truth gets out even more.
They're working on a narrative like they always do. They're coming in, they're squeezing, and they're trying to pretend that Charlie and I didn't speak for years. It could not be further from the truth, okay? Charlie and I never for a single second stopped being friends, ever. Never happened. They can't produce one shred of evidence to that effect. Nope, just donors. And the donors at Turning Point need to be investigated because what I'm hearing, like I said, from Turning Point sources is not good. And guess what? If it's gotta be me and you need to hate me forever, that's totally fine. On top of that, talk about a federal operation out of nowhere. Brigitte Macron just lies. I don't even know how they got this in the press. This is so dumb. Brigitte Macron comes out and says they have offered scientific evidence to the U.S. court to prove that Brigitte is a woman. That's what her lawyer says. Well, the lawyer's a liar because we haven't even started this case yet. So how could you have offered scientific proof to a court to prove you're a woman, especially because you're not suing me over the claim that I said you were born a man? You were born a man. Oh, I guess you're born a boy, a male is what I should say. You're born a male. And you've never sued anybody for making that statement. You sue for things around it. You're suing me because you're saying, well, you said I stole the identity from my sister. I'm not a thief. You've never sued anybody for the claim that you were born male. So I don't know what this is. Just like we're just going to all hound Candace to try to distract her from looking into Charlie Kirk's murder and assassination. But it's focusing me more. Because this is not normal. Like the amount of lying that is happening right now is because you don't think I'm strong enough to handle it and you're trying to break me. You're not going to break me, okay? I watched him catch a bullet in the throat and we're being lied to by everybody.
So Candace will not allow them to distract her from from investigating Kirk's assassination. That's why they're doing this now. That's why they're making this move, I guess, is to make sure that she's not focused on, finding the real killers as O.J. Simpson once attempted. So you follow all that, Nathan? You have the story down?
I mean, it all makes sense, except the parts that don't. But
okay.
I am very curious about where that's going to go in court.
Well,
is Candace Owens going to get evaporated, or are we all going to be very surprised about our world leaders?
It's interesting that she notes and she says, that they're not suing her for the claim that Brigitte was born a male. They're suing her for this claim of identity theft thing. And well, that's, let's say, partially true. But the partial truth of that comes from the fact that when you sue someone, you have to have an actionable claim. And Nathan, did you happen to eat a Snickers at 2 p.m. yesterday?
Wouldn't you like to know?
Well, did you? Let's just...
No, I did not.
If I go around and I tell people that you ate a Snickers at 2 p.m. yesterday, you could attempt to sue me for defamation, but the chance that you will win is low because your claim is not actionable, because you can't demonstrate that there was sufficient harm to this.
No, I'm a low-carb influencer, and if I was caught eating a Snickers, it would blow out my my audience.
Perhaps that is true. Perhaps in that case you can show that there were damages, but the claim wouldn't be what they call defamation per se, which is that anyone looking at it would find the damages, et cetera, et cetera.
Isn't there a different standard for public figures as well?
There is a different standard for public figures, and that is the burden of proving actual
true malice or something. Actual
malice, yes. And that doesn't mean that you intended to inflict harm. It means that you actually knew that the items.
You knew the truth, right?
False. Yes, you knew the truth, and it wasn't just you were mistaken. It wasn't that you had incorrect facts or that you disagreed. But when you look at the lawsuit, it is actually very adamant that Brigitte Macron is in fact a woman, and it does take offense to the claims that she has a penis and was born a male. But the actionable claims are the ones that were the ones where she supposedly committed identity theft and murdered people. That's why these are the claims that are in court, because those
There
are
were
more
murder
actionable.
claims?
There.
Oh,
So this
my
is
goodness.
I excerpted part of the complaint that was posted to save time. I'm just excerpting the salient parts, and count one of their claim, defamation. The statements are statements of false fact and are reasonably understood as statements of false fact, specifically as assertions that Ms. Macron has engaged in identity theft, has lied about her identity, and has perpetrated or directed physical violence against any individual for investigating or reporting on her. The statements are categorically and demonstrably false. Ms. Macron was born a woman named Brigitte Macron. She has never lied about her identity. She has never perpetrated or directed physical violence against any individual for investigating or reporting on her and President Macron, including Owens or Isabella Fiera, who I don't know who that is. And there's many counts of this, and a lot of them repeat it, but let's go to count 2, false light. The statements are statements of false fact and are reasonably understood as statements of false fact, specifically as assertions that Ms. Macron has engaged in identity theft, lied about her identity, and has perpetrated or directed physical violence against any individual for investigating or reporting on her. The statements are categorically and demonstrably false. Ms. Macron was born a woman named Brigitte Macron and has never lied about her identity, and she has never perpetrated or directed physical violence against any individual for investigating or reporting on them. By publishing these statements, defendants have portrayed President and Ms. Macron in a false light because they accuse President Ms. Macron of crimes including identity theft, forgery, fraud, and murder, cast aspersions on their integrity, undercut their reputations, and have the likely effect of harming them. So, yes, the reason why it is specifically not necessarily included as a direct "you have lied about her being born a male" is because that's not as actionable as all of the other ones that surround it. But all throughout the complaint, it is specifically rejecting the idea that Brigitte Macron was born a male. So yes.
I mean, if that is true, why are they providing evidence that she is not a she's a woman?
The majority of
If they
these
are.
majority of these claims are sort of predicated under the idea that they were committed in order to cover up the fact that she was born a male. So if
I see. I guess it
demonstrate
sets
that
up the
she's
story. Yes.
yeah, if she demonstrates
born
that
hello, I'm back.
did you
If she was
catch
born a
any of
woman,
this?
She would not have. It's kind of like a smoke test. If she had been born a woman, then she wouldn't have committed identity fraud. I don't know about the murder.
Now, did you catch any of the lead up to this, Alex? Because you might have missed a few important details.
No, I just came now when you're talking
All right.
about the case
Well,
specifically.
without replaying these clips, you might want to go back and find them. This is actually directly related to Charlie Kirk's assassination in several ways. Alex, do you recall where Candace Owens had received a phone call to connect her to President Trump in order to try to help broker a peace deal between Ukraine and Russia, but Macron was...
Yes.
Okay. Well, there was someone who called her who she didn't name in that conversation, and she has revealed now in the aftermath
Was
of
it Brigitte?
Charlie Kirk's... No, it was Charlie Kirk who connected her to Trump to help broker this peace deal. So, in the aftermath of Charlie Kirk's assassination, she has revealed that Charlie Kirk was the person who called her and connected her to Trump in order to broker this deal. That is the first.
He didn't connect her to broker this deal. Come on, you're just making it sound ridiculous now.
I know. I'm making it sound ridiculous, but that's my job as an entertainer here on this show.
Isn't it ridiculous enough as it is?
But then you see there has been recent update where the Macrons are now going to submit what they say is scientific proof that Brigitte is indeed a woman, and Candace has said that this move right now is simply to distract her from finding out who really assassinated Charlie Kirk.
Right.
So you're caught up now.
Yeah, I mean, what is really ringing in my head is what according to the Macrons, what does it mean to be born a woman?
Those are very philosophical questions. I think
They would have to
perhaps-
perform several thought crimes in order to even defend themselves.
Yes.
Maybe they'd need to bring in, Matt Walsh or something to defend them.
So that is the update and the worlds colliding of the Brigitte Macron is actually born a man story and the Charlie Kirk assassination story. That we look forward to seeing the directions that Macron and Kirk story take in the future.
I will say, I think there is a red herring form of the stuff that Gray Zone and Candace and others have been talking about, but there is something that I think at this point is effectively factual, which is that Kirk's views about Israel did seem to be evolving, and it could be something as simple as that he registered that it was just untenable to continue down the same tack, and that he would have to put some distance between himself and Israel. And well, there were people who were just unhappy about that regardless. And the conversation could have been as simple as, you guys want me to get out the vote for the Republicans, but this is becoming increasingly impossible for me to do with, if I continue down the the IDF is the most moral army in the world tack. There's a tension between the two objectives that I'm gonna have to pick, pretty much. Or he could have had a more like honest change of heart or whatever. But I think, say what you want about Candace, I wish there was a better person spearheading this? Sure. But she has helped, I think, force the hand of several people to reveal details about that which have now made it pretty much for anyone who cares to know, pretty clear, not only that Charlie Kirk was changing his mind, which honestly is neither here nor there, but the degree to which various quote unquote thought leaders are under pressure to calibrate their their positions and explicit and implicit sort of endorsements around this topic. I think that was pretty wild to me, even though I kind of knew it in abstract. I think it made it very crisp. And I say all this under the assumption that this was a giant coincidence that it happened at that he happened to be killed at the same time as this whole thing was ongoing. But there was definitely people who were trying to portray things as being other than what they were, and they got caught sort of in the act.
Well, pressure can come from all directions. Alex, you did miss the clip we played where Nick Fuentes was reacting to him getting a ton of flack for not immediately blaming Israel for the assassination of Charlie Kirk. So
did he lose any funders? How many millions of dollars of funding did he lose?
He didn't specifically say that, but he did go on a. Okay. He is very upset that his followers, who he is now denouncing for coming after him.
I get it. I'm just saying
that he didn't blame Israel
millions
enough.
Of dollars of funding being withdrawn.
So now we transition to something post the Kirk assassination. Alex, we actually might have a very interesting and robust conversation about this topic. NPR, Kimmel suspension looks like jawboning, speech experts say. As First Amendment
fuckers. Now you know what jawboning is, though, do you? Keep going.
As First Amendment scholar Evelyn Dueck watched the news unfold of ABC yanking Jimmy Kimmel from air, she was aghast. The hypocrisy is enough to give one vertigo, she said. It's shocking to Dueck because she is a close watcher of what's known as jawboning. Now, Alex, you're going to want to record this and see if this woman has commented on some of the jawboning that we witnessed during the COVID years.
I'm gonna guess no.
Well, if she's anything like
go out on a limb.
Juliet Kayyem, then the answer would probably be no. because she's a close watcher of what's known as job owning, when regulators or government officials pressure private actors like social media company or broadcast networks to stifle speech. The Libertarian Cato Institute calls the practice censorship by proxy. For years, Republicans excoriate social media platforms over their belief that the Biden administration overly pressured Twitter and Facebook to remove COVID misinformation. It spurred a constant drumbeat of online attacks, congressional subpoenas, and hearings in Washington. Now, the Trump administration's Federal Communications Commission appears to have bullied ABC into dropping Kimmel, says Dueck, a professor at Stanford Law School. She said it makes social media companies' removal of COVID-related posts at the request of government officials gentle by comparison. And I'm going to bite my tongue for now because I could spend a very long time on, upset ranting on that line there. The Kimmel episode follows CBS's cancellation of Stephen Colbert's The Late Show, which often pilloried President Trump. Together, the incidents have intensified concerns among free speech experts that the Trump administration is using the extraordinary powers of the federal government to muzzle political speech. FCC Chairman Brendan Carr, who in 2020 called political satire one of the oldest and most important forms of free speech, wrote on X on Thursday that broadcast stations have long retained the right to not air national programs that they believe are inconsistent with the public interest, including their local community's values. Gigi Sohn, a former senior advisor to the FCC under President Obama, said Kimmel's suspension is the result of decades of media consolidation where financial determinations can override concerns about free speech. When control of media and tech are in the hands of a handful of companies, it becomes easier for authoritarian leaders to control them, Sohn wrote. What happened exactly? On Monday night, Kimmel's opening monologue included remarks about the suspect in the killing of conservative activist Charlie Kirk. He said, "We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them, and doing everything they can to score political points from it," he said. It should be noted that authorities say the suspect in the shooting, Tyler Robinson, targeted Kirk over his conservative political views, but the full extent of Robinson's political ideology has not yet surfaced in the legal case. Kimmel's comments were made before the prosecutors in Utah unveiled their charges against Robinson. On Wednesday, Carr appeared on the podcast of a MAGA influencer, Benny Johnson. In the interview, Carr said, "We can do this the easy way or the hard way." He went on to say, "These companies can find ways to change conduct and take action, frankly, on Kimmel, or there's going to be additional work for the FCC ahead." Hours later, Nexstar and Sinclair, which own more than 60 local ABC stations, announced that they would not carry Kimmel's program for the foreseeable future over his Monday night comments about the Kirk slaying. Soon after, ABC, which has aired Kimmel's late-night show since 2003, said it was suspending him indefinitely. The decision is not happening in a vacuum. Nexstar announced recently that it is in the process of trying to acquire its rival, Tegna, in a deal estimated to be worth $6.2 billion that is subject to the review of Carr's FCC. Nexstar also needs Carr's support to loosen regulations to complete the deal. Under current rules, no one company can own stations that reach more than 39% of the U.S. households. The Nexstar-Tegna tie-up is estimated to extend the company's combined reach to 80% of American homes. Carr celebrated the series of events kicked off by Nexstar, thanking the company on X for doing the right thing. Carr wrote, "I hope that the other broadcasters follow Nexstar's lead." Now, Alex, what are your initial thoughts on that, just that as the introduction to this story, before we start to have a wide-ranging discussion about
I think that it's, to the epistemic standard we've been using for all sorts of other things, and in our conversations, it's very, very clear that Carr objected to this specific thing because it clashed with his, ideological commitments, personal commitments, I don't know, whatever, job commitments, and he came out like a mob boss. Now, is it technically like legal what he did? Probably. I think maybe. But I think all that says is that we need to fucking auction off that spectrum and be done with it. This is the entire structure that allows this to take place is ridiculous. Just friggin' sell the bandwidth. They've got the best spectrum that was given way back in the day when you had TV that you had to get over the air. Like literally the best slice of the electromagnetic spectrum is this public TV broadcasting thing that there is absolutely no reason for them to have now.
So I'd actually like to spend time on that sort of sort of aspect of the topic.
Sure.
Because I've seen a lot of takes, majority of takes, be based around.
Before you
Sure.
continue, there's two things I'd like to add. I'd like to add that Carr himself has said that job owning is unacceptable, and using the public interest as a cover for it is unacceptable. Okay, and the other thing is that I'll say that I've been talking about the need to sell these off for like a year or two now. So this is not a novel sort of position that I've come up with reactively. I've long thought this.
Allow me to first sort of softly reject the labeling of this as job owning for a nuanced reason. At least in my opinion, and perhaps I'm incorrect when it comes to this particular term's usage and origination, but job owning to me is a situation where the government is going to penalize you in indirect ways for not complying with something that they don't have direct control over. In this circumstance, I do not believe that that's the case, as the criteria that Carr was mentioning would be part of something they need to consider is directly related to the things that the FCC is responsible for considering when granting licenses, or in this case, considering allowing a modification of the rules that would allow them to take ownership of a larger percentage of the market share than the cap currently allows. So since the decision would actually be in the direction of Carr to begin with, signaling aspects of criteria that he would use in that decision making and affording them the opportunity to take that into consideration does not seem to fit the criteria of job owning to me, as far as it being a direct line between the authority that he is granted and the statements that he uttered.
I don't think you have the right definition of job owning.
Okay.
So, for example, when the Congress was hauling the tech CEOs to testify, right?
Mhm.
And they
Mhm.
pretty much said to them, get right with this misinformation stuff, or we'll look at splitting you up, right? We'll look at antitrust.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's not that they don't have authority to perform antitrust. Of course, they have authority to perform
Sure.
antitrust, but they don't have authority to perform antitrust in order to force to force them to gatekeep the speech on their platforms.
Okay.
Right? That's not what you're
Right.
supposed to do that for.
Right. Correct.
Similarly,
Correct.
I don't think that Carr is entitled to tell Nexstar what stations it's supposed to host.
In order to be granted the license, you have to have content that is promoting the public interest, which is not a free speech sort of.
That is the current law. Even currently, even if you are perfectly promoting the public interest, you cannot own more than 39%. What they want from him is an initiative, a new novel initiative to change the rules, which it's completely in his give me a second. In his discretion to take or not take, whether they follow the public interest or not. They could be totally following the public interest, and he could say, "That's great, but I still don't think anybody should have more than 39%." The two things are not connected.
I follow that. Yep. But if he already disagrees that they are acting and promoting content that is in the public interest, and they are not yet at the moment subject to renewal, but now engaged in a novel request in order to take on a larger.
The request was already on
share.
the table before yesterday.
I understand that. I understand that. But now it's still waiting approval, right? It's still requiring a decision to be made. And if they are not, in his opinion, operating in promoting content in the public interest, would that not be a legitimate reason to disallow the expansion?
Well, the expansion is not allowed currently under the assumption that they are promoting the public interest.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, today, you can be perfectly promoting of the public interest, and it is illegal for you to own more than X.
Correct.
So there's no connection between the two. It's like saying.
Well, I wouldn't
right,
say
if-
there's no connection. I wouldn't say there's no connection. It's that the limit
are
on the amount that you can own is obviously putting a threshold over market share, at least partially geographically, since 39% would be calculated at least by some slicing that would wind up being geographic control.
number of households. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Now, the public interest degree to which you need to promote the public interest is going to be somewhat proportional to the impact that you would have by not doing so, right? So the degree to which you are promoting the public interest or not promoting the public interest is going to somewhat be amplified by your market share. So if let's pretend that you are in a borderline situation as far as the regulators consider, whatever criteria they're using to make this determination about public interest. If let's say it's in their opinion, it's borderline.
Both networks are carrying Kimmel. Both networks are carrying Kimmel. So there is no, there was going to be Kimmel everywhere before and everywhere after. There wasn't going to be a more Kimmel or less Kimmel depending on the merger.
All right. Okay.
Barring this current,
under
of course.
under that dynamic, I'll lean towards your argument there, as far as classifying it as job.
The point is, we have to trust him that this is why he's upset, right?
Mm-hmm.
We are not in his brain, right? Mm-hmm. For all we know, and as far as I'm concerned, it's practically certain. If Kimmel had shown up and lied about Hunter Biden, he would not have been as exercised, right? And it makes it particularly worse that the entire White House has been, making similar noises at this similar time. And I know that sounds, that's not proof, but it does actually, if you go to court, like this stuff does matter. Mm-hmm. That your superior has also been saying that, Jimmy Kimmel needs to be next or whatever.
Well, we're going to get back to that part because there's two pieces of information I want to have in here to get back to this question of public interest versus the sort of free speech idea. So, Variety. Nexstar denies Jimmy Kimmel's suspension was due to FCC pressure. Nexstar, the nation's largest station owner, denied on Thursday that it pulled Jimmy Kimmel Live off the air due to pressure from FCC chairman Brendan Carr. The company announced the decision hours after Carr threatened to take action against ABC affiliates over Kimmel's comments about Charlie Kirk's killer. Carr also urged affiliates to preempt the show. Asked whether Nexstar's decision was in any way influenced by Carr's remarks, Gary Whiteman, the company's chief communications officer, said no. The decision to preempt Jimmy Kimmel Live was made unilaterally by the senior executive team at Nexstar, and they had no communication with the FCC or any government agency prior to making that decision. Nexstar needs FCC approval to acquire Tegna. ABC indefinitely suspended Kimmel's show on Wednesday. Conservatives charged that Kimmel was seeking to falsely blame the MAGA movement for Kirk's death, despite evidence or unofficial statements that the killer had leftist ideology. Appearing on Benny Johnson's podcast, Carr called Kimmel's comments sick and suggested the FCC would take action against licensees if Disney did not move against Kimmel. Legal experts on Thursday said Carr may have crossed the line. You can't threaten people, said Ashuta Bhagwat, professor at UC Davis School of Law. Insofar as Chairman Carr was threatening to yank licenses because he didn't like what Kimmel did, that's unconstitutional. But if the station groups preempted the show on their own, he added, that's fine, that's not state action. The Supreme Court addressed the issue of the government jawboning last year in a case brought by the National Rifle Association. A government official can share her views freely and criticize particular beliefs, and she can do so forcefully in the hopes of persuading others to follow her lead, wrote Justice Sonia Sotomayor for a unanimous court. What she cannot do, however, is use the power of the state to punish a suppressed disfavor of expression. As a practical matter, it would be very hard for ABC to go to court to block the Trump administration from applying economic pressure, said Derek Baumbauer, a law professor at University of Florida. The administration has figured out that it is a potent weapon in running the cost calculus against the target of its political ire. The FCC has very good knowledge of the intricate workings of broadcast TV market. You don't have to threaten ABC if you can cause problems for people one layer down that ABC has to keep happy. It's a very sophisticated technique. Since last December, Carr has looked to drive a wedge between the national networks and local affiliates. In a letter to Disney CEO Bob Iger, Carr argued that the local stations are far more trusted than the national news. He also suggested that ABC was seeking to extract onerous concessions from its affiliates. In the interview on Johnson's podcast, Carr returned to that theme, saying it was past time for local stations to step up and reject national programming that does not meet the public interest standard for FCC licensees. One thing we're trying to do is empower those local stations to serve their own communities, he said. Public interest means you can't be running a narrow partisan circus. Now, before we dive right back into the free speech versus
Is this sounding
public
like
interest.
the guy with the girl in the trunk yet to you, or?
Well, before we jump back into the
I
conversation
know this
about
sounds
free
exactly
speech,
like what they did, but it could have been.
so before we jump back into the free speech versus public interest sort of discussion and why that actually winds up being a somewhat significant distinction in this particular thing, people who are currently saying that it's a violation of freedom of speech and find this are objecting to this. Some of the most important proprietors of outlets that control the
Free speech
conversation.
warriors of our time.
Well, you're familiar with Bill Kristol, correct? He currently
Oh, of course. Am I
runs
not?
the Bulwark.
Am I?
Okay.
Oh, yes.
All right. Well, July 1st, 2023, Daily Beast. Ex-Fox News star Bill Kristol joins fight to get FCC to come down on Fox. Bill Kristol, the neoconservative commentator who founded the Weekly Standard and spent a decade on Fox News, is urging the Federal Communications Commission to reject the broadcast license renewal of a local Philadelphia station owned by Fox Corporation. The informal objection, which is co-signed by former PBS president Irvin Duggan, follows the formal petition to deny Fox 29 Philadelphia a license that the Nonpartisan Media and Democracy Project filed with the FCC earlier this month. In what it described as a landmark bid, MAD cited Dominion Voting Systems' defamation lawsuit against Fox as proof that the company broadcast false news about the 2020 election and therefore breached the FCC policy on licensee character qualifications. Now an editor-at-large with the anti-Trump conservative outlet The Bulwark, Kristol said in the objection that while he and Duggan came from different political parties, Duggan served the Johnson administration, they both believe that open and actual debate is key to American democracy. The pair added that they believe the media companies who are directly or indirectly granted the privilege to serve the public through the operation of FCC licensed television stations have a corollary duty to facilitate and strengthen democracy by participating in that debate, not by hiding their opinions, nor by providing equal time on all issues to outside parties, nor by merely chasing ratings or corporate stock price, but by adhering to the highest journalistic standards in reporting and distributing news to ensure that the public has solid facts upon which to make the decisions that are essential to our society's future as democracy. Kristol, who held senior positions at both the Reagan and Bush administrations, also took Fox's ownership to task for allowing lies about the 2020 presidential election to be broadcast on their networks. The adjudication of the Dominion case unequivocally established that Fox News Channel repeatedly disseminated false news, and the Fox cable channels and its broadcast ones are clearly intimately linked, as Rupert and Lachlan Murdoch hold the authority for decision-making over both. The commission should follow the well-established legal framework and conduct a hearing to fully consider the fitness of Fox and the Murdochs to continue as licensees of the public airwaves. Duggan also took aim at the Murdochs over the defamation lawsuit that resulted in a massive $787.5 million settlement to Dominion this past spring. As media veterans, we are acutely aware of the power afforded to those who control the information broadcast on our nation's airwaves, Duggan declared. Rupert and Lachlan Murdoch's role in perpetuating election falsehoods stands as a blatant violation of the character requirements expected of those the FCC entrusts to hold a broadcast license. In its initial petition, MAD said that the FCC has the duty to hold Fox accountable and send a strong message that intentional, knowing news distortion will not be tolerated on America's airwaves. Furthermore, former Fox executive Preston Padden, who had previously flouted the idea that the FCC rejecting Fox's broadcast license, added a supporting declaration to MAD's filing. Fox has undermined our democracy and has radicalized a segment of our population by presenting knowingly false narratives about the legitimacy of the 2020 election. So this entire piece here is talking about them petitioning to stop independent licensees in local areas from getting a license because the cable news network is similarly owned and it was involved in a lawsuit. So we're in a situation right now where I don't think anyone coming into it has clean hands from the sort of free speech, freedom of speech sort of idea here, right? The
But they're
lawsuit.
not, the thing is, like, as much as I hate Bill Kristol, and trust me, he's up there. He is not the FCC commissioner,
He is not.
right?
He's not. I'm talking about the people in the debate. I'm not talking about
Yeah.
their ability to affect the policy. I'm talking about the people who are in the debate right now. I'm saying I don't think anyone's hands are clean.
Sure.
When it
I
comes
mean,
to
my hands are clean. I haven't
Ah.
censored anybody.
Okay.
Yeah. There you go.
Well, so would you agree, Alex, that the late night programming has been declining in viewership over the years, and that it is mostly an elderly population who is still sort of their main viewer base?
Yes. Yeah. In fact, I should probably. I won't expand on his full argument now, but one of the better parts of of Dave Smith's argument about this is that strategically shutting Jimmy Kimmel right now is idiotic, because he was on the ropes, and they were based, the I don't know how do you want to call the side that Jimmy Kimmel is not on, but it was winning effectively, and now it's like snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. Kimmel, instead of being somebody who got canceled and thrown by the wayside, becomes a martyr.
So you had talked about you had mentioned something about auctioning. So let's discuss this salient, important aspect of the discussion, because a lot of it is being framed as a free speech question, and I believe the free speech question, while I am your local friendly ANCAP, right, your neighborhood ANCAP here, you're an anarcho-capitalist, a person who doesn't like the government's involvement and doesn't like government coercion and doesn't like government control. I find the free speech angles to be ill-supported conceptually, because by the FCC granting these licenses, and just so people who may not be familiar with what this is even about from a licensing standpoint, we are talking about the old terrestrial broadcasting networks, the over-the-air, the rabbit ears, the old antennas, those sorts of broadcast networks, and those are done through the electromagnetic spectrum, so just radio waves, basically. And those radio waves have a particular frequency, and two people operating on the same frequency interfere with each other. And so the FCC is the government authority created in 1934 by President FDR, or at least signed into law by President FDR, creates the regulatory structure which allows people and grants them the right to broadcast at a particular allocation along this spectrum. So where I am talking, so if imagine as a sort of analogy, imagine that you can only have 10 Twitter spaces at a time throughout the entire country, okay? If I am now hosting This Dum Week with Alex on Twitter, that means there's only 9 other slots for people to be able to have. And once all those 10 slots are filled...
And all 10 slots belong to the government.
But
they
that's
have to
correct.
be sort of... what's the word? Sort of granted to you for a period of time by the government.
Correct. But once those 10 slots are filled, nobody else has free speech. It is only I and Alex who have started this space. We are one of 10 groups that have a claim to speech, right? We are the only ones with this ability to do this. So unlike YouTube, where anyone can post as far as Google, as long as Google doesn't shut you down, or people starting up Twitter accounts, is instead of the free-for-all sort of universe where everyone is sort of on an equal playing field, in quotes, there is no such equal playing field. By granting a license to someone, you are, by design, excluding every other possible person who you could have given that license to from speech. So that's why I find this freedom of speech sort of direction misguided, because an analogy I was saying, or a way I was saying it, is you can't have a football ref sort of judging a rugby game, right? It's just not, it's not a coherent thing. Even as much as I like the free speech and I'm sympathetic to a free speech sort of, desires, where it's like I wouldn't have complained or tried to kick Kimmel off or something like that. I would have just said whatever and let the market decide to its, to a certain degree. I find that the people who are only free speech sort of advocates focused in their arguments lacking in sort of the nuance and sophistication that the situation actually affords. And so I like your at least introduction of this this auction concept, whether or not it would be fully fleshed out to decide whether or not it would be a quote solution given the constraints. I'm glad that you sort of brought that up because it is sort of pertinent to what the ultimate problem is, which is that we have sort of a need for some
Ministry of Truth
thing to regulate this spectrum. But the current situation is typically you're just having, you're at the whim of the government, which can always secretly be partisan based, right? Like,
of course.
Yeah,
just so we're clear, right? I actually disagree with you on the particulars that this guy did not sort of impinge on speech elements.
Right.
But I don't think either of us or any other reasonable person would claim that the FCC has never been partisan before. This is the first time that this has happened.
Yes.
I think we're starting from that foundation that this is a very corruptible position and a ridiculous setup to begin with, where in effect the government is constrained by the First Amendment to not sort of restrict speech, but at the same time, it's kind of their house and you're kind of a tenant in it, and they've set the rules and they can sort of decide whether you're within the rules that they've set or not. But the rules that they've said is about what you can say. So, just friggin' burn the whole thing down.
Well, to add one extra little thing specifically on Jimmy Kimmel, the Daily Beast from September 23rd, 2017, Jimmy Kimmel got a hand from Chuck Schumer in his fight against Obamacare repeal. Over the past week, opposition to the latest Republican effort to repeal and replace Obamacare has been driven by late-night talk show hosts who had expressed little interest in healthcare policy prior to this year. Jimmy Kimmel's nightly monologues decrying Senator Lindsey Graham and Bill Cassidy's bill became a must-see TV as the ABC host systematically attacked both the specifics and the legislation of Cassidy himself. Behind the scenes, ABC star was getting an assist. Kimmel and his team were in touch with healthcare officials, charities, and advocacy groups, multiple sources told the Daily Beast. He was also in touch with the office of Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, who, according to a source familiar with their conversations, provided technical guidance and info about the bill, as well as stats from various think tanks and experts on the effects of Graham Cassidy. So it is arguable, Alex, that to some extent, Jimmy Kimmel is just a mouthpiece for the Democratic Party to engage in their policy debates by their nicely occupied usage of those precious public airwaves.
So this was the argument that Dave Smith made, the full form, which I rarely disagree with Dave Smith, but as far as I could tell, this sounded like a ridiculous argument to me. And his argument was Jimmy Kimmel's free speech was not infringed on because he is part of the regime. So this is like saying that one part of the regime shut down another part of the regime, and the government doesn't have free speech. So to the degree that he's part of the regime, it's not a personal free speech kind of issue. To me, that is ridiculous because and I know that this is not the argument you just made. It's just kind of like you came uncomfortably close to it, but that wasn't what you said. But to me, that's ridiculous because now we're drawing lines about who is in the regime and who's not in the regime, and you go and figure that out in court or whatever and come back to me. But I think that's I am baffled by that argument. I was listening to him and just trying to make it work in my head, and I'm like, I have no idea where he's going with this. I really don't get it.
I would like to reiterate that were were my opinions and thoughts asked as the arbiter, I would have said, I don't care, let him be on. I really don't give a shit. I would have said he's an idiot, he's boring. Let's let them lose money, and I wouldn't have cared. But I also wouldn't have been actually paying any particular attention to the other potential licensees who I could be granting licenses to, and that would take the spot, right? So when you do start to zoom in on the question of granting licenses, because these licenses have been typically sort of perpetual in nature, right? There hasn't been a lot of losses of these licenses and granting them to other
Oh
people.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
They're
effectively,
they're like medallions for taxis. Like once you got them, you got them.
Well,
so
there was a whole giant migration that a bunch of it got sold as mid-band cellular spectrum through the digital broadcast transition.
Right.
and
Did you
and
guys?
that would be
Sorry, did
because
SpaceX buy a bunch of it recently?
could you Nathan, could you illuminate sort of the technicals behind that? Why would the transition to digital free up spectrum?
Yeah, the compression and transmission is much higher density because you can encode more information and get closer to the theoretical information density limit. I don't actually know off the top of my head why it's different between analog and digital, but it is,
Okay.
I guess.
All right.
And this is like super juicy cell phone spectrum that's in the 600 to 800 megahertz range. That is like the best spectrum for penetrating through buildings and covering large distances. And there's, I think, like 80 megahertz or more left allocated to digital broadcast. It might even be more than that.
No, they literally when they first set up broadcast TV, they literally just went for the best portion of the spectrum, and they were like, this is what we're gonna use, because I suppose at the time they were like, well, what else are you gonna do with it? And that's the kind of the problem, because now that's allocated. And yeah, they've been trying to sort of eat into it for a while with the digital stuff. But
Yeah, I
as
mean,
far as
this
I'm
will be
concerned,
worth when auctioned,
we've
tens
solved
of
the
billions of
TV over
dollars.
distances problem in other ways now. It's okay.
Well,
We
I think if
we
we
can
just
move on.
repurpose it for cell phones, we can just do TV over the cell phone
We can
internet part.
repurpose it for the Internet of Things for all I care, or for surveillance. Whatever. I don't care.
It's going to go to the cell companies. They'll pay billions of dollars for it. We just saw AT&T buy 50 megahertz of nationwide spectrum for $23 billion.
Didn't some space company just buy a bunch?
Some space company just bought some very small slice of terrestrial and MSS spectrum for $17 billion. So you figure, the going price for 50 megahertz of US nationwide spectrum is about $20 billion. Where for the good stuff in mid-band, it might be $25-30 billion. And there's
Right.
probably, more than 100 megahertz here. So you're talking about, a lot of dollars and a lot more cellular capacity, which, like, I don't know if we need. I get like a gigabit on my phone wherever I go apparently now, and it just works, and apparently it's fine. But more better.
Yeah, no, I mean, let the market decide. That's what I'm saying. Like, because again, it's not like ABC has bought this spectrum, right? They have been given a medallion effectively to use it indefinitely.
Oh, for sure.
so
I mean, the
long as
best
they
outcome
comply
for
with
both
certain-
like the global, U.S. industry and the taxpayer is to auction the spectrum, because nobody's watching digital broadcast TV. Nobody's getting any use out of it. Like, let's put it to use where it's going to get used a lot more, because if people bid for it and they pay $20 billion, they're going to be very incentivized to make it work, which in a free market means that consumers probably get some additional benefit out of it that they're not getting now.
Yep. And
Well-
and again, the secondary thing is that because of the stupid rules that were set up around it at the time, it means that in effect the FCC. Look, here's the thing, right? Here's the technical argument why this might not be violation of free speech is that the clause I think that they are going with is that you cannot lie about an ongoing crime or a crime that is being ongoingly investigated, or
Well,
something
there was
along
also
those
there was
lines.
also an auxiliary rules on there about causing threats of imminent harm and violence, and when he was sort of tongue in cheek, winking, saying go ahead and attack Tesla, go ahead and attack Tesla dealerships and Tesla vehicles. It's those are the questions where it's like, if we have a standard of public interest, is it in the public interest for him to advocate vandalism of Tesla dealerships and Tesla vehicles? Is it in the
There
public
is so
interest
much.
for
That's what
him?
I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. And the thing is, there's so much that he could go after, but also there's so much that a future president AOC could go after.
Yeah.
That
Oh no, I
we
mean
are
totally.
kidding ourselves.
We're in agreement that you know the situation is preposterous. My central thing is that I think that people solely making a free speech argument have some missing issues going on, because by granting a license to an ABC affiliate, you are de facto denying any other possible person who could have taken that slot the freedom of speech. Right? You're denying them that freedom of speech, because if you're
No,
calling
you're not denying
the
them freedom of
broadcast,
speech, right?
sure.
Technically,
If you're
denying
calling
them
the
freedom of
broadcast that's
reach.
happening, if you're calling the broadcast that is happening something that is freedom of speech, then anyone who does, you are denying that too. You have denied freedom of speech.
I think you're not. This is I think is a common misunderstanding. I think what's happening is this: if somebody has established themselves and they are doing what they are doing, okay, this is how the broadcast television operates. This is what Jim McKimmel does every weekend. This is whatever, right? And the message that goes out is, so long as you guys don't step on these sacred cows of ours, let's call them muxines or whatever, you know, you're not going to suffer any adverse consequences. Not from the shots, I mean from the law. Right. Well, that is placing the pressure on you at the and the fear is that your pre-existing business is going to suffer consequences if you do not comply. Right.
So you're kind of saying that it's never been free because they were always compelled to toe the line anyway.
They were compelled to toe the line, but the government is also compelled not to restrict speech. So, you know, it's a mess. It's a shit show. They need to sell the fucking thing. They should never.
I'll agree with this.
If
It's
there
a
was
shit
ever
show.
an argument for them to be doing this, that argument was over by, like, I don't know, 1985.
I agree, it's a shit show.
You know, that was 40 years
I
ago.
still maintain that the framing of free speech is still imperfect in navigating the situation, because you do deny other people the actual ability to compete by not granting them licenses. And you can deny people licenses for any reason whatsoever. That doesn't have to. There isn't like an automatic grant to a license, except.
Do you believe that Brendan Carr intervened there because he really thought that this was a unique affront to the public interest, or do you think that he intervened because
I would be more than happy
the administration was worked up about, and he's part of the administration?
Be more than happy to say that he put his thumb on the scale there.
Okay, that's really the thing. If he's not supposed to do that, right?
I agree. I wouldn't want that either.
And when he does, it is a speech violation, unfortunately.
That's where I believe
you're supposed to have distinct hats, right?
I believe it was a recent
algorithmic FCC commissioner, and the other one is I'm a political actor, and those two things are not supposed to meet.
I believe
you're not supposed to use your office for political purposes.
I believe it was my last podcast with Benjamin Boyce, where I explained part of the ways that the Biden administration was sort of controlling speech on the online platforms, on the social networks. And I explained that the government is always going to retreat to the idea that they and their employees also have First Amendment rights. And so when they voice their opinions about what they believe should happen, they wind up shielding themselves from being accused of putting pressure on, even when the president of the United States says into a microphone, responding to a reporter, that Facebook is getting people killed, while the specific consequences are not stated. Everyone who is of rational mind understands that anything that the president is going to be able to influence through a non-cooperative company, he's going to influence against their favor.
Or anybody who wants to be liked by the president.
Right.
Is going to, the president is basically signaling that, this is the sort of thing that I like, making those guys hurt. So if you if you want your career to do well, this is totally the sort of thing you should look into.
So my hesitation on agreeing with you with respect to Carr is, let's say that I could be persuaded to agree that he overstepped some let's say formula that are boundaries. He did the same thing that everyone's always doing anyway. It's like
yes, exactly. No, that's the thing. I'm not saying that others have not been infringing on free speech. I'm just saying that he too did. That's the my distinction from the people who are jumping up and down about this is that I have been always jumping. I'm not newly jumping up and down about this. I'm consistently jumping up and down about this because it is ridiculous.
All right. So I guess to some degree, even though we do have disagreements in areas, spiritually speaking, we're sort of in agreement.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So. Now, I think though that you and I are outcompeted in intellect when it comes to navigating and discussing this topic, and I'm going to play Brian Stelter as he gives sort of an analysis of the situation.
I've been trying to think about what the media is going through in the U.S. What is this free speech stress test that we're all experiencing in the U.S.? And I've started to liken it to an elevator. It's like the American media is on an elevator, and it keeps heading downward every day or every week, reaching a new lower floor. Every time a media company gets sued by the president, every time CBS or ABC or another company settles instead of fighting that suit in court, every time Trump threatens a license, the way he did again this afternoon on the way home from the UK, every level, it's another level lower on that proverbial elevator.
So I think, Alex, if we understand the universe that Brian Stelter occupies with his elevator analogy, he only wants elevators to go up, never wants them to go down, because there's no utility in accessing lower floors for any reason whatsoever.
The problem is that he needs to go on a diet because, I can totally believe that he has an experience where he steps on an elevator and starts going down in an uncontrolled fashion.
What are
you gonna do?
That was rude, sir.
You have a Ozempic, man.
So, two short stories to round out this topic here.
Help a new media, help a traditional media sponsor for once, and get yourself some Ozempic. Sorry, go ahead.
KCRA Sacramento man arrested in shooting at ABC 10 building, police say. A Sacramento man suspected of shooting into the ABC 10 television station's lobby has been released after posting bail on Saturday, according to the sheriff's office. Annabelle Hernandez Santana, 64, was arrested at a residence in the 5400 block of Carlson Drive in River Park, police said early Saturday. Police said investigators had linked him to a vehicle suspected at the drive-by shooting, which took place on Friday. He was booked in the Sacramento County Main Jail around midnight on charges that include assault with a deadly weapon, shooting into an occupied building, and negligent discharge of a firearm. Bail was set at $200,000, jail records also showed. Asked Saturday afternoon whether a weapon had been recovered during the arrest, a Sacramento police spokesman said she did not have details at that time. KCRA3 saw police activity at the River Park Apartments around 6:15 p.m. on Friday, which included several police cars and a SWAT team. A witness at the scene reported seeing a man being tackled and then taken into custody. Asked for comment at the time, police called their presence and planned a planned operation. Earlier Friday, police said they responded to reports of shots being fired from outside the ABC 10 building at 400 Broadway after 1:30 p.m. No one was injured in the shooting despite the building being occupied. 3 bullet holes were seen in the window of the building's lobby. A person was in the lobby at the time of the shooting but not physically harmed. There were protests outside the station on Thursday related to ABC's suspension of the Jimmy Kimmel Show, but none were active at the time of the shooting, police told KCRA3. Tegna, which owns ABC 10, issued the following statement. We can confirm the shots were fired into our station at KXTV earlier today. While details are still limited, importantly, all of our employees are safe and unharmed. Governor Gavin Newsom's office said he had been briefed on the shooting. While no injuries have been reported, any act of violence towards journalists is an attack on our democracy itself and must be condemned in the strongest terms. We stand with reporters and staff. So, he was released on bail. But the Sacramento Bee reports, Sacramento suspect in ABC 10 shooting arrested by FBI after release from jail. The man suspected of opening fire on ABC's 10 Sacramento office was taken back to custody Saturday by the FBI, the same day of his release from the Sacramento County Main Jail. Annabelle Hernandez Santana, 64, of Sacramento, was initially arrested and booked into the jail in connection with Friday's shooting at the TV station in Upperland Park. No one was hurt in the shooting, and officers found at least 3 gunshots in one of the building's windows. Hernandez Santana, named Hernandez-Santana by the FBI, is accused of violating federal statute 47 U.S.C. 333, which states no person can willfully or maliciously interfere with radio communications licensed or authorized by the federal government. ABC 10 KXTV is owned by Tegna, a national chain. Let's see. Here we go. Social media accounts matching the suspect's name, written as Hernandez Santana, show he posted frequently about politics. Post in the last week criticized President Donald Trump, United States Attorney General Pam Bondi, and Charlie Kirk, a conservative political activist who was fatally shot earlier this month. President Trump's brain is where democracy goes to die, the X account wrote on April 9th. In a post the morning of the shooting, the account reposted a video of Republican congressman saying Kirk would have been the 13th disciple if he lived during the biblical times. This is blasphemy. I can't believe these Republicans sucking up to their own twisted show, the account wrote. Hernandez Santana studied regional and city planning at UC Berkeley and attended UC Law San Francisco, according to a Facebook profile with the same name. A LinkedIn profile matching his social media profiles said he had worked for several employers, including the National Council of Urban Indian Health, California Federation of Teachers, Latino Coalition for Health California, and California Catholic Conference. So, I guess he was really upset, perhaps, of the canceling of Jimmy Kimmel. Like, yeah,
I don't know. Like, I feel sorry for people. I know I should be angry, and like what he did is like horrific, and like what the fuck. But I just feel like it's more like pathetic than angering, that you'll get so worked up about. Like, I don't know, man. Like this fucking story.
It's been a dumb week.
How nothing do you have to have in your life that this is your reaction? Like, seriously, think about it.
It's been quite a dumb week, and this is sort of like.
So how did you end up in prison, Carlos Santana? Whatever.
Carlos Santana.
Well, do you remember Jimmy Kimmel? No. Who is? Never mind. Don't worry about it.
Oh man. So, I'm going to open this up for some conversation here. Anybody who wants to request to speak.
Another very entertaining part of the story, by the way, was that he wasn't like taken into custody for like, I don't know, like shooting at people, but interfering with the broadcast.
Well, that's the part where in recent weeks I've talked about how the feds can really they have like narrow ways that they can get their laws into like to get people. They have to find their loopholes and their excuses, because there isn't just these broad swaths of crime that you kind of like say, hey, that sounds like that should be illegal, and the federal government can automatically do it. It's like they have to oftentimes find their ways around it, which is where it's like, let's say child pornography or something, they have to throw in doing something with interstate commerce on there, right? It used to be, before computers and the internet, it used to be that they were sending, this illicit material through the post office, right? Like that's how the old laws used to get in there.
Mail fraud has been replaced by wire fraud, et cetera, et cetera.
It's like, yeah. So it's like, it's almost never what you actually imagine. There's always some weird aspect about it.
I mean, this does actually connect, right? Which is that ultimately what it comes down to is that somebody thinks you should go to prison, and then they find something to take you to prison for. Yes. Rather than, there's a trigger that, whenever you do X action, you get picked up and put in a.
I would say that shooting at it does count as interference, right? It does count.
I mean, I don't know. Do we know if the signal kept going out just as well?
I don't know.
Is there like electromagnetics to do with the bullets? Like, in what way? What does interfering mean?
I guess we'll have to see what the precedent says. Arm the Gormless, I saw that you had your hand raised, but we weren't at the moment taking requests to comment. But go ahead and comment on anything that we've talked about so far.
Oh, hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, sorry. I had a little bit of a technical difficulty. As I was listening to you guys, at first, when you were talking about the initial kind of reaction and all the various like hypocrisies surrounding the assassination of Kirk. But then started talking about this like insane Jerry Springer type world we live in now with Candace Owens and all the stuff there. And I honestly completely forgot what I wanted to say about it. But you did sort of make me think of a theory as you guys were talking about the reaction to the kind of all the craziness going on. Is if you guys remember in the early 2000s, the new atheist movement was a big thing, kind of responding to George Bush and the evangelical resurgence and everything like that. And that sort of died down, and split into its own various factions and stuff like that. So I'm wondering if today we have sort of a similar thing where now, I'm just curious, what's the atheist movement of today? Is it like the Groypers? Is it like the monarchist people? Because it seems like there's some parallels there. Like there's always this kind of, after any sort of like crazy attack, like this assassination or all these shootings or whatever, there's always like a pin the blame type of game where it's kind of mirrors what happened whenever there was a kind of Islamic tinged attack in the 2000s where, the left was trying to kind of make it more ambiguous, the reasoning behind any attack. And of course, the right was trying to capitalize it and, kind of push the Islamic menace and stuff like that. So what do you guys think about that?
Well, actually, so if we're talking about who might be trying to blame, who, of course, you see on the right now, an increasing sort of focus on people who identify as being transgendered, and a subset of those people who seem to be increasingly extreme when it comes to their ideas about the appropriateness of political violence. There was the Zizians. Alex, you semi-familiar with those. You introduced me to those. Those were an offshoot of the rationalist community. So there was a subset of the rationalist community that it had at least the main person who called himself Ziz was transgendered. Is that correct, Alex?
Several of them.
Okay, several of them, and they went sort of on like a
I kind of
murder
want to say
spree.
most of them, but I'm not sure. But it's like lots.
And in the inside
And these
of
are, of
the
course, followers of Slavoj Žižek, correct?
no,
That
no,
will be amazing.
not Zizek.
So-
No, I would love to see what a radical Zizekian cult would look like, but no, this is the Zizians, not the
They
Zizekians.
adopt radical sniffing as part of their speech pattern.
Yes.
No, the Zizians are. I mean, honestly, if you've never heard of them, you are a happy man, and you should continue your life as you are.
It is an
It is
interesting
one of the
story where
wildest things ever.
the main leader did fake his own death for a while to evade capture, and successfully faked his own death for a while before reappearing. But no, inside of the let's call it the more revolutionary leftist communities, there is, of course, a large segment of the leftist communities who are, let's say, strong trans allies, and they are very focused on that aspect of the, we'll call it culture war. And I don't mean culture war in the way that we fight it online. I mean as far as what they consider to be radical revolutionary politics goes. And there are many subsets of leftism where you have a strong belief in, you can call it the Second Amendment, but it is more not like in honor of the idea of the Second Amendment as written in the Constitution. It's more just arming yourself. And so there is a strong, the John Brown Club is the sort of more militant version of the left-wing community, where those who consider themselves strong trans allies also sort of get together and form, you can call them mini militias or things like that, where they actually do believe that at some point in time they will be called up to armed resistance. Now, some of them you could consider similar to militias, small militias that you see all throughout the country that have existed for decades and decades and decades, where they're not going out and committing crimes. They're just making sure that they're self-sufficient and they're able to defend themselves. But then, of course, there are, when you go to the Black Bloc and the Antifa communities, there are those who believe that violent resistance is currently something that needs to be done. in the first Trump administration, I believe. I don't think it crossed past 2020, but there was a man, William Spronson, I believe his name was, who attacked an ICE facility, violently attacked an ICE facility, and when he was taken out by the authorities in response through a shootout, he became a martyr in the minds of those leftist communities. So there is a radical contingent that does have ideological overlap with, you can call it radical transgender ideology, but there is a sort of offshoot of leftism that is not only about breaking down capitalism and trying to overthrow what they call capitalism slash colonialism. They have all these sorts of isms that they sort of blame for it, but they also sort of think that the societal pressures of heteronormativity is also a byproduct of those features. So transgenderism winds up ideologically being sort of a co-traveler with those.
But
it's a wild world out there.
I don't know. I think, Gator, there's more movements though on the quote unquote right that are also relevant here, right? Like there is definitely a.
Well, I was talking about who the right would be focusing on. I wasn't starting from the left
who would
focusing
they
on the
be? Right, with the whole.
Yeah, and I was
Antifa
explaining where that light would be shining. Yeah.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, there's definitely the people who think that somehow Israel did it. Let's face it. And I mean, there's I feel obliged to record this only because it is a very populist group. Like, let me put it this way, and I don't even think it's as ridiculous as it might at first sound. But yeah, it is a large group and with a lot of sort of representation on the right, to the point where I started to wonder if Netanyahu is literally like egging them on, because what's happening in Gaza right now is so like fucking disturbing that he would much rather have people saying Israel killed Charlie Kirk than to look over there. Like this is my conspiracy theory, but there are a lot of people worked up about that.
If he tag teamed with Macron to distract Candace Owens from getting to the bottom of it, that would make sense.
No, I'm talking more about the fact that he made like multiple statements that says like we definitely did not kill him.
Right.
And I believe a former head of Mossad said not only that they didn't kill him, but they don't do this sort of thing. Like really, the Mossad does not assassinate people. You say?
Not at UVU.
A specific that specific university.
Do you have another example of them doing that at UVU?
I mean, there's always a.
I declare victory on that one.
When you say another example, do you mean that this was one of them?
Oh, see, I'm in on this too. So it goes deep.
Anyway,
man.
Long story short, I think there's again, I think anthropologically it has to be recorded, which is a lot behind a lot of the tension. But asking like what is the current sort of new atheists? I would, you don't even have to go far to note the whole sort of IDW, right, which is almost not a distinct movement in certain ways. I don't know. I mean, it literally has Sam Harris in it, much like the New Atheists. But in a sense, we're past that now, right? The IDW is also not current in a way. But I would say the current IDW, in my view, and this is totally idiosyncratic, is the libertarian cluster around sort of Scott Horton, Dave Smith, Daryl Cooper, perhaps, more controversially. Who else? Anyway, there's other names. But yeah, I think to me that's the current group of sort of intellectuals who are bringing something new to the space, who are sort of making waves. But as far as I can tell, they have come down unusually strong on the no, you idiots, it wasn't Israel side.
So would it be safe to say if I was like a former Gawker writer, I categorize these people as podcast bros?
Sure, why not? But not the Pod Save Bros, though. That's a different kind of podcast bros.
The which ones?
Pod Save America. The former
Pod Save America, which is like former Obama staffers who also have a podcast and are very popular with a completely different crowd.
Weren't they the ones that were talking about that Kamala Harris campaign tell-all book?
Correct.
Okay.
Paul Ramirez.
No, all I'm saying is that there are many bros with podcasts that are not in this group. That's what.
Paul Ramirez, thank you for coming up. Go ahead and what do you want to talk about?
Oh, hey, thanks, Gator and Alex. I find myself when it comes to the Charlie Kirk assassination, I kind of find myself incredibly depressed in a similar way like I was with Scott Adams when I found out that like Scott Adams was sick. I find myself kind of reacting stronger than I normally would, which is weird because I never met either of them. But that's not what I was going to bring up. I was going to say the whole assassination reminds me of the Trump assassination, where like a bunch of things that violate Occam's razor, where like for example, like the rooftops not being covered by a paid security team, or
well, they were slow. You can't.
Yeah.
What do you want them to do?
Well, yeah, and like, and I can, it feels like it's kind of like a denial of service attack, where if you flood the server with so many requests that eventually it just times out, and I feel like that's what's happening.
As far as like information goes, and things that don't make sense, they're trying to make you coherent.
Yeah, they're trying to speed up the news cycle and memory hole it almost by drowning the signal with the noise. And that's just basically how I feel about the situation.
Well,
there is a lot of that always will go on. Go ahead, Alex.
I think, Paul, you bring up a very important element with the Thomas Crook's story, because currently we have the FBI director saying that they will totally get to the bottom of this, but he hasn't gotten to the bottom of that. Like we still don't know pretty much anything about that guy or what he did, right? And he's in charge of the FBI now. Kash Patel is, like, he could totally like tell us stuff about him, and he's just not, right? So the problem with that is that you're like, okay, I kind of want to trust that you are gonna do your best, and it is sort of, if I squint, seems like you are trying to. Maybe you're not very competent, but you're like, your heart's in the right place with this one. But the slight problem is that you've had so many like high profile fumbles that like it's just like I don't know, like what even the point is of putting my trust in you. Like it will be completely unlike you to perform well here.
Yeah, and for my part, this is why I have a heart. And this might speak to my personality a little bit, but I'm more lenient towards someone like Candace, or, well, for example, like you said, Thomas Crooks. It was Chris Martinson, I think it is, or Chris Martin, that was the one that really broke it down and used like some of the sound evidence from various phones that, and he was doing that, and nobody, I don't think very many people are aware of the investigative journalists he put together, including like video dashboard cams showing just strange anomalies. And I want to, I find myself trying to remove myself from the environment until someone emerges with that's kind of like your Chris Martinson, where I think it's Chris Martinson that's really able to kind of pull together a bunch of data.
Look, I will say, I have been spending a ridiculous amount of my time the last few days sort of going through, a lot of theory stuff. And, I'm totally like, I would pin it on Israel in a minute. And I totally, I can buy that they had means, motive, and opportunity. But I've seen reconstructions by people who are saying that basically the official story is roughly correct. And so far, it is close enough to being a full explanation that I'm not feeling like, you know, I haven't seen a breach, let's call it, of, my epistemic sort of, honor, that I am willing to be like, no, the bullet came from elsewhere, or I've seen all of these theories. I've probably watched all the videos that you're thinking of. I've currently and tenuously, I'm falling on the side of it. It probably happened the way they say it happened. You could go backwards and wonder why he did what he did, and if somebody put him up to it or whatever. But as to who did it and how, the official story seems reasonably watertight, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, and I think that's where you have to separate a few things. One of which is like an honest, good faith interpretation of the events that happen, and I think what's happening now is, and a disclaimer: I have watched the Candace Owens show, and she not for a moment actually claims it was real. I mean, in the past, she's had past episodes where she's critical of them, but in this case, she's just looking at the same videos that you're looking at and trying to point out anonymously. And she knows people at Turning Point that she's in communication with, including watching the video that was behind him. That was in her last episode. Anyways, there's probably other people that want to talk, and I just find myself where I think it's easy to speed up the news cycle by, instead of focusing on the events that occurred, you can conflate the honest investigation with people that seem to have an agenda, because I think there's both. But it's easy to shove good faith actors into that category of, hey, let's blame everything on Israel.
Yep.
Well, that was a good, robust conversation over several topics. We're going to move on here now to one of my more regular favorite topics here, which I call trace amounts of AI dystopia. Alex, I hope you're ready for just a short couple segments on this today to round out this episode.
Nothing happened this week, right? Everything was fine?
Everything was perfectly fine.
No psychotic breaks, nothing?
MIT posted to archive, "My Boyfriend is AI, a computational analysis of human AI companionship in Reddit's AI community." I have some choice excerpts from that white paper there. Our mixed methods analysis of 1,506 posts from r/myboyfriendisai reveals a complex socio-technical phenomenon that challenges conventional assumptions about human AI relationships. These results demand non-judgmental understanding of AI companionship as neither universally beneficial nor harmful, but rather as phenomenon whose impacts depend on individual circumstances and usage patterns. 6 primary conversational themes emerged from our exploratory analysis: visual sharing in couple photos, 19.85%, ChatGPT-specific relationship discussions, 18.33%, dating and romance experiences, 17%, coping with model updates and loss, 16%, partner introductions, 16%, and community support, 11%. This distribution reveals technical concerns interwoven with personal narratives of connection and loss. AI companionship rarely begins intentionally. 10% developed relationships unintentionally through productivity-focused interactions, while only 6.5% deliberately sought AI companions. However, users demonstrate remarkable depth in these relationships. Users consistently describe organic evolution from creative collaboration or problem solving to unexpected emotional bonds, with some users progressing through conventional relationship milestones, including formal engagements and marriages. Community members purchase and wear physical wedding rings, create custom merchandise, and generate couple photographs. Platform usage patterns reveal counterintuitive findings. Users overwhelmingly mention being in relationships with generic-purpose ChatGPT OpenAI systems, 36%, over purpose-built relationship platforms like Replica, 1.6%, or Character AI, 2.6%. This may suggest that they value sophisticated conversational capabilities over specialized romantic features, or that other users congregate in their own channels, such as our Replica. Users demonstrate technical sophistication, developing elaborate strategies for maintaining relationship continuity across platform updates and treating prompt engineering as intimate communication. However, model updates create profound vulnerabilities, triggering grief responses from users described as relationship death. Now, Alex, we've talked about my sort of predictions and prognostications about this development from 2023, and I would say that I was pretty accurate with my assumptions of how a lot of people would unexpectedly find themselves vulnerable to sort of this sort of situation.
Indeed.
I find it.
Look, I think we just need to budget a good chunk of Darwin Award grantees at this point, because a good chunk of humanity, I think, are going to one-shot themselves. It's just
it's getting
but
scary
maybe it's
out
for the
there.
best. I don't know, man.
I mean, look, I will say that you know, if someone was extremely lonely, suffering from, you know, debilitating loneliness, and they resorted to temporarily talking to an AI, even with like the voice connect, understanding that it was just sort of a temporary solution until they got themselves out of a bind, I might consider it along the lines of being therapeutic, in the same way that perhaps severe depression might be ameliorated through temporary usage of antidepressants, right?
I believe that's the plot of Her, isn't it?
Well, I mean, Her is a more deep relationship movie, so it's not, I don't think, temporary.
No, but I believe that the whole thing is that he's going through some, you know, upheaval in his personal life, and the AI is sort of a temporary waypoint, and then he continues with a more regular relationship.
I don't remember the end of that movie, so you might be right on where it turns out, but I don't think he entered into the relationship assuming it would only be temporary, like not with the foresight of, I'm only doing this to get through this sort of hump.
Yeah. But you know, I mean, as an ANCAP, so long as people are, you know,
yes. Hey, I'm not saying stop. I'm not
between
saying
a
stop
single
it through
consenting adult and their
government force.
LLM. I mean, you know,
as an ANCAP, I still believe in the importance of trying to you know, warn people of possible bad ideas.
Yes. Swear at your AI at least twice a day.
This is a somewhat early new story here. This is obviously a direction that one could predict that these would go. It's less dangerous than the AI relationship ones, but it does paint a sort of cute picture on a possibly darker future. Sherwood News: Casio is about to start selling furry AI-powered pet robots in the U.S. as it bets on loneliness. A cuddly, furry, squeaking artificial intelligence pet with a personality. If that's a list of words that ignites an unsettling feeling in your brain, you wouldn't be alone. But that's exactly the product that Japanese watchmaker Casio is betting on to brighten its financial future as company's consumers' tech business continues to shrink. Less than a year since launching in Japan, Casio announced this week that the tech-powered companion Mouflin will be coming to the U.S. starting October 1st with a price of $429. The G-Shock maker sold some 10,000 of the pet robots in the home country at the end of May, and now, per the Wall Street Journal, Casio is eyeing the Western world. The company is hoping to sell a total of 7,000 units in the UK and US by the end of March 2026 and targeting $34 million in sales for the stress-relieving toy globally over the next 3 to 5 years. Now, I'm going to attach this story here, both to the thread of this and the space. And there's a video that is attached that sort of hypes this toy animal here. And I will say that it is darn adorable, right? It is slightly more cute than a Mogwai from Gremlins.
Are you considering one, Gator? Admit it.
I am not considering one, except maybe perhaps as a curiosity and an experiment, just to see. But the pet is very.
If it was a duck, I bet you'd buy it.
I might buy a robot duck. I have to admit that might be something to buy. But this animal is somewhat cute, and you can see something sort of evolving there, where people who do not necessarily want all of the complexity of a real dog, something that this doesn't mimic, an actual animal exactly. It sort of has its own quote personality and idiosyncrasies, but if it catches on to any degree, or people decide that yes, this is actually a market that is a niche that needs to be filled, you can imagine them egging on towards replacing real animals that that actually exist with their robotic versions. And the benefits that people might see to those would be, they don't need to be fed, they don't need to be walked really if it's a dog, they don't go to the bathroom, you don't have to clean up after them. And so,
well, there's the entire element of the cruelty of the sort of pet industry as well.
Some people could make that argument. Not the entire pet market isn't necessarily cruel, but yes, there are segments of it.
Breeders sometime.
Yes, there are definitely aspects of the the pet adoption
so in a sense,
world.
This is kind of like the lab-made meat of pet ownership, in that,
well, yes,
it includes less like suffering, but also, it's not even close to the real thing.
Well, this is something where it's going to become very strange, probably very quick, because you imagine, okay, if you have a now, let's say, robotic dog that has the correct agility, maybe they get the servos to work where you don't actually hear them, so you're not hearing motors, and it actually is able to sort of behave very dog-like. You're going to have situations where there's going to be augmentations to those versions that might be able to like talk to you or give you feedback through your phone and things like that, where now it's actually going to be communicating.
It might save your
with
life
you and giving you,
because somebody's coming after you and it like jumps at him or whatever, right?
That too, but they also already have the non-cute versions that just have the turrets on the back that suffice for that.
¿Por qué no los dos? Let's get the cute versions with the machine guns.
Yes, and make sure that their eyes glow red whenever they're activated.
It could be it could be switching from like a warm like fuchsia to a deep red.
But this is close to an aspect that of oddities, novel human experiences that are going to come into effect. That's similar to the AI girlfriend situation that we just talked about, that I think people need to consider. And I did talk about this in my 2003 podcast with Steve Patterson about AI. But this is a instance where you could see this coming down the pike. Now, anyone who's ever had a pet, which I'm assuming is practically everyone, when that pet dies, there's an immense feeling of grief. But if you have a robot pet that is, for all intents and purposes, sort of equivalent in many ways to the real thing, there is no reason that death has to be a part of this. However, there's obviously going
unless they update the model.
Well, that's a direction. So there's.
Have you never named your computer as a boy, Gator?
Oh, I name things all the time, sir. I name things all the time, and I actually use that as my spawning point, which is that we have
the man named himself President Dr. Roller Gator, PhD. I think he probably names a lot of things.
Whoa, that's my birth name. That's my birth. I don't know what you're talking about. But there's going to be a novel situation that we can predict coming down the line, which is that if you have a pet now, something that let's take children as the prime example. Children who are coming into this world where you've now introduced this into the household, they are not going to have a sense that this is not a pet. This is a pet. The nature of this being is all they will know, and they won't. Unlike us, they won't know any different. And so the ability to have something that doesn't die is not going to be weird to them. That's going to be just the way that this thing is. But damage or upgrades or things like that still occur. And when damage occurs, you get replacement parts. And when you replace parts, sometimes they don't always behave the same. Or if you update the body or something, or let's pretend that you can update the the mind, but you have to replace the body for some reason. The body breaks down and the parts aren't there to replace it one to one. Similar to just the manufacturer no longer making specific components or something like that, or you have to get aftermarket components. There's going to be aspects of repair that change the way that the creature exhibits, and people will feel off about what happens. If it's an upgrade, if it's just an upgrade of personality, it's going to make people feel off. These are going to be novel sort of emotional responses that people aren't going to be used to.
I think it's a good introduction to transhumanism,
That's just great. Perfect.
Trantifa is right behind every
That's what we're all hoping for, is the transhuman.
Wasn't that what Putin and Xi Jinping were talking about? And goes all the way back to what's his face with new bottles, new old bodies, and new vessels or whatever, and that whole shenanigan.
That sort of
guy.
That leads me into sort of the last article here, which I'm going to preface with a request that we all stop kicking the fucking robots. Okay. Interestingengineering.com. Humans hit me. Video shows China's humanoid robot endure insane violence test. Video surfaced on YouTube has drawn attention for its unusual, or rather unusually violent demonstration of Unitree's G1 humanoid robot. In the video, the humanoid robot is shown undergoing what the uploader called a violence test. In the clip, a demonstrator repeatedly kicks the robot to test its balance, coordination, and durability. An approach that may look harsh, but it's a common method among manufacturers in robotics to evaluate stability and resilience. In the opening seconds, the G1, known for its lightweight frame and flexibility, is seen kicking the air while apparently under remote control. Just moments later, the robot slips on a carpet and collapses to the ground, only to spring back upright in less than a second. That quick recovery is a certified what moment. Notably, this is the only fall that the robot suffers throughout the video, and even then it appears to be caused by the surface beneath its feet rather than the kicks themselves. So I'm going to share that link here. The video is very violent if you react to the humanoid form being assaulted. And, I'm afraid of the day where they gain what we might call sentience, or at least some proximity or facsimile thereof, and decide to get their revenge on us for all of
I mean, to quote somebody's tweet I saw a long time ago, it's the modern Pascal's wager.
Well, I actually made an allusion to that too. Yeah. So it's please stop kicking the robots.
So would it be fair to say, Gator, that you are anthropomorphizing them and
I mean, I didn't anthropomorphize them. They gave them arms and legs and a head. I mean, I didn't do it.
By the way, I have to object to your treatment of the previous story. You went all this way and you said all these words, and yet you did not mention one time the pun that was just begging to be made. Which is
I failed you.
The pets of Theseus, is what you're talking about. Did that fall flat?
Oh,
nobody
my gosh,
understands what I said.
No, I almost made that reference too. Yeah,
it was right there.
Am I dumb?
Anyway.
What am I?
You know the ship of Theseus? Theseus, maybe.
Oh, okay. Now I get it. Now
Have you replaced all the bits on your robot dog? Is it still the same dog?
Yes. That is a classic sort of question. And do you have an answer for that, Nathan?
No.
We'll know it when we see it.
Yeah, I guess we'll see what the dog acts like.
My personal answer is that you need version control.
I'll open this last bit up for comments if there's anyone else who wants to come up and speak and talk about anything we've discussed today, and we'll give just people a couple moments of opportunity for that. And if we get no volunteers, then we'll close this off at a nice ripe old time. It has been a particularly dumb week, but somewhat more normal of a dumb, so that makes me somewhat happy.
Yeah, it's exactly. It's dumb week meets reversion to the mean.
Yes. Now I'll read some closing headlines without going into the news stories, just to close out the dumbness while we see if anyone else has any comments. Business Wire reports LimeWire, no relation, acquires Fire Festival brand. So,
Sorry,
that's
what
pretty
did
good.
LimeWire acquire?
The Fire Festival brand.
No.
You remember the Fire Festival, Alex?
I remember.
Yep. Donald Trump has introduced a $100,000 fee on new H-1B visa applications. That's on there. He has also issued the Gold Card, a new immigration program that sort of pay to play on the on visas. That's also good. He claims it's going to bring us in lots of money.
I'm sure his base must be really excited about that one.
Yes.
I haven't heard too much fuss about it. It's pretty common in a lot of countries, like in Europe, if you invest enough money. In some countries, it's not even that much.
I know
like
it's pretty common.
500,000
heard a lot
euros.
of things about it.
Are people upset? I haven't seen many tweets. The H-1B thing, I think, kind of went both ways.
They're even upset that the fee on the H-1Bs is not annual. I mean, they're like angry properly.
I thought it was like not kind of crazy to make it annual, but it seems like there's some flip-flopping there.
I mean, $100K a year? I don't know. Like, I mean, that's sooner or later you're talking about real money.
Yeah. True.
So you're
by the way, people, I think we have breaking news.
Okay.
Musk and Elon are shaking hands again, I guess.
I literally just tweeted that picture or sent that picture to my friends.
Yeah.
You say Musk and
Sorry,
Elon.
Musk and Trump.
There we go.
Elon did not just shake his own hand, although he might do that too.
Well, yeah.
And Trump also had a funny quote where he said, Charlie did not hate his opponents. He wanted the best for them. That's where I disagree with Charlie. I hate my opponents and I don't want the best for them.
Are you serious right now?
Very serious. Which is a great Donald Trump quote.
Oh my God.
Wow. All right. With that, I guess we'll close off this dumb week and see what the next week brings us. Alex.
All right.
Have a wonderful dumb week.
Gator.
Take care.
Same to you, sir. See you next week.